It's TIE Fighter Renegades, a Star Wars podcast.
Ooh, it is time for some TIE Fighter Renegades, and the man of tomorrow is here, just rubbing his hands, ready to try and heal the Star Wars world like Mr. Miyagi, not like Rey. Anybody remember that scene? I think they literally stole that. I think this whole like force healing, they stole it from Mr. Miyagi out of The Karate Kid. I'm telling you that happened. No, I don't know if that happened, but regardless, it was way more intense. At least they had a great theme when he'd do it. But of course, I am not alone, you know, and he's certainly not my Danielson. If anything, he teaches me. None other than Robin Freebeard here for some TIE Fighter Renegades, in my opinion, the hottest Star Wars podcast in the world today. Robin, welcome to the show once again. Woo!
Wubba lubba dub dub.
Yeah, wow. Season 4 of that action's running too, right? a little Rick and Morty there for you, which I don't even know if like an alternative or an alternate universe Rick could possibly save what's going on with Rise of Skywalker. And I think, frankly, we should open this up talking about something or rumor, I should say, not news, but rumor and innuendo, as some other industries that I'm a fan of say. Rumor and innuendo that, well, again, just a couple hours before we're recording this, and we are recording this on, what is the date? January 2nd, 2020. Welcome to the new decade, folks. And that is, apparently there is a completely alternative cut, what is being called on social media the JJ cut or the Abrams cut, which is supposedly a 3-hour cut of the film of The Rise of Skywalker. Now, the source for this is somewhat anonymous, if I'm understanding that correctly. I know you found the Reddit where all of this is coming from.
Yeah, it's entirely anonymous.
Sure.
There's a subreddit on Reddit called Saltier Than Great,
which is such a great name. Saltier Than Great. Man, what a subreddit.
But yeah, somebody contacted the moderator on that board and leaked all this information, and apparently, you know, enough information was divulged that the moderator was confident that this person actually worked on the film in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, the only a thing that can bring validity to this kind of stuff is if news outlets don't respond to it right away. Like there's CBR or Screen Rant or somebody within an hour should have been typing something out and getting out at least a couple paragraphs just to strike the iron if it's complete bullshit. But I think a lot of these news outlets ultimately are they pay fealty to Disney. And so that's the one thing that makes me kind of wonder, hey, this might be legit of what's being said. Yeah. Because, you know, the media is basically waiting for marching orders from Uncle Bob, you know, at Disney.
Right.
And
this leak lends credit to that, you know, kind of thinking, because one of the things that's brought up in here is that apparently the whole eBay script leak, you know, from John Boyega was completely fabricated.
Yeah.
Disney PR.
Yeah, well, I mean, and hey, you know, I've on my show Sovereign Tech, I've talked about this kind of thing all the time, where, you know, so much of this stuff it's AstroTurf, or it's what in wrestling business you would call cheap heat. It's where you just get people talking about something. You pull whatever little stunt you can, and you know, on the internet, who knows what to believe? I mean, that's just a reality that we're dealing with today. But this is a very interesting, I mean, and there's a lot here, and we're not going to cover it all, but some of the high notes, again, are that this cut is like done and out there, which is possible because we know they were editing the film on the fly. So the idea that, you know, when they were done with principal photography, and maybe even, you know, a shit ton of post-production, that there could have been there is a full-on 3-hour version of this film out there. I mean, and to say that, I mean, I've been saying this for a while now. Any of us would sit through a 3-hour Star Wars movie. I don't see why that's a problem. People sit through Marvel movies that are, frankly, I think horrible, but they're that long. I don't see any problem with a movie being that long. Why wasn't it that long? Go ahead.
I mean, that just goes to prove that Disney isn't interested in making Star Wars movies for Star Wars fans. They have to make it for a mass audience.
Right. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I get it that there are people who won't sit through a 3-hour film. I mean, that's for sure. But it does make sense of why, this rumor does make sense of why this film feels so choppy, why it's so, fast paced and like things, it doesn't get a chance to breathe and things are going here and there, because it looks like there's a shit ton of plot elements, filmed scenes, the whole thing that, are just ripped out whole cloth from Rise of Skywalker, that you probably had to be really careful how you edited this film to make sure there is no reference to any of that. I'm kind of reminded of Return of the Jedi, where there are scenes that clearly reference a different way that Return of the Jedi was going to go. The most famous example, perhaps, would be when Palpatine says, "Your friends on the Sanctuary Moon." The concept of a sanctuary moon doesn't make any sense until you read alternative scripts for Return of the Jedi. But regardless of that, one of the scenes talked about here is that Hayden Christensen was actually in the movie. He was a Force ghost. Perhaps Liam Neeson was. And we're going to talk about these later. All the voices that you heard in Rey's head, the ones that weren't animated, would appear around her as Force ghosts, and that was filmed and done and out there. But then it didn't end up in the final cut, which that's interesting. And boy, that was one of the things that we said in our initial review in the last episode of TIE Fighter Renegades was, they should have had Hayden Christensen in this, but they said no for whatever reason. There's a lot of other things here too, including that J.J. Abrams apparently wanted to have the Finn-Poe relationship, where Finn and Poe are, gay or at least bisexual and have an interest, which I would have been totally up for. I think that would have been fantastic. That Disney just went through this with a fine-tooth comb and brought on the bean counters and fucked this thing. What validity do you give to this rumor, Rob?
It all seems very plausible.
Yeah.
But like I said, it is the internet. You don't know whether or not you can believe all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that, and this seems to be the aim of the quote unquote leaker as well, is that this instigates more people in, positions of greater, clout,
mm-hmm.
to speak their mind and actually tell the story of what actually happened.
Yeah. Frankly, do you feel like, because there's a lot of explanation coming out after the fact with this film, you have J.J. Abrams saying that the kiss between Kylo or Ben and Rey was not romantic, or it wasn't just romantic. It was more about almost a brother sister feel, or there was something deeper there. I don't know. But he was basically saying it's not as romantic as everybody thought it was. And people were rightfully complaining about this, that it's normalizing abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Right. Because go ahead.
I find it entirely plausible that Disney was more interested of appeasing, just going to say it, white women than people of, straight white women, that is, than, people of different, minorities or
mm-hmm.
sexual orientations. I do think that JJ probably had, the intention to have more than just that kiss at the end of the movie between the two female characters.
Oh yeah. Right. No, I hear that. So, yeah, that's the thing with this leak or rumor, is that a lot of what I read, I just read and I go, holy shit, this just makes sense. And, another part of it too, is that, and I want to talk about this, about how we feel about this movie now, because both you and I have watched it more than once now, Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as I'm not really a fan of J.J. Abrams, I can't believe he did this bad of a job. It's, come on. Really, again, I don't really like his movies. I actually
Neither do I.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I do like Star Trek, and I didn't mind Into Darkness either so much.
I didn't like those movies as much as you. I mean, they're not bad, they're not terrible, but
Right.
to me, they still weren't really. They didn't strike at the core of what Trek was.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And even J.J. Abrams has admitted that he's not a Star Trek fan.
Yes.
But he is a fan of Star Wars. So, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it is kind of hard to believe that he made this bad of a Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, man, like some of his past stuff is just such a mess, too. I mean, like, I actually sat through all of Lost. And I don't know why I did that, because that show was such a mess. Like,
oh, yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
Seasons in. You know?
Yeah. No, I hear that, but supposedly he wasn't involved in like the last couple seasons of that. You know, supposedly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that just goes to show that he can't stick with anything. You know?
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. Yeah. No,
like,
right.
He can't stick a landing.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't, or he just like he doesn't have staying power and he has to move on to the next project or what. Whatever the case is. But I mean, I can't think of like the things that are wrong with just on a cinematic level, not within the story, things like this. On a cinematic level, the things that are wrong with Rise of Skywalker, I've just never seen anything by him that is that off base, that's really that rushed. All of his characters are always running, sure. Like, I mean, yeah, that's a trope for him. But like, I understand the arguments against like Star Trek Into Darkness, but at the same time, it still has fine narrative flow and it doesn't feel like a rushed movie. And, the pacing's good. Everything's
coherent.
Fine. Right. It's coherent.
Yeah, it's a coherent movie. No doubt about it. Whereas, you're right. Like I was saying this to Brian before we started, this is the true test of any Star Wars movie is how it fares on multiple viewings.
Right.
And this one does not get better with multiple viewings. If anything, it gets worse.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things where you're just wanting to find stuff out, and I think that makes it enjoyable. That creates a certain sensation where you get some closure in your brain when you watch it the first time around. But then once it doesn't get better. As for interestingly, like Last Jedi, like we said in the last episode, Last Jedi, watching it without the expectation of getting answers, it's a better film. That doesn't mean it's a good movie, but it's a better film than what it was. Okay. As to where this one, yeah, I'm with you on repeat viewings does not hold up as well. And yeah, I don't find myself because like now I'm looking for more things and then there's just not more to find. And that's really disappointing.
Yeah.
Because you're hoping that, okay, I know this is going to move at a breakneck speed. So now I kind of have a better idea of how to watch it and how to engage with it. And even when you have that mindset, I'll tell you this, my opinion has changed towards your opinion that I think this is still a better movie than The Force Awakens. Yeah. That's not saying much.
No,
but it is a better film. It is the best of the sequel trilogy, but then that's bad if this is the best of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. And I know we're not alone in feeling this way because, I mean, Star Wars fans are notorious for rewatching these movies while they're in theaters. Yeah. And the box office results are dropping off precipitously.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got legs more than any other movie, but that's only because it's Star Wars. And frankly, if this movie were anything other than Star Wars, it would be getting skewered into next Sunday. I mean, it would be really, nobody would be kind, I don't think, to this film. And I mean,
that's the power of the Mouse House.
Well, that's true. That's very true. I mean, part of we're kind of all over the place on this. We got a lot of great stuff to get into. We're not just going to talk Rise of Skywalker the whole time, because I don't think the world could handle another Depression Fest. We will talk about some great things. We have some comic book reviews to come up later on, and we are also going to talk about the rest of the Mandalorian. So you got good shit coming up. But we do have to talk about this. I brought this up on a Zomia ONE Underground Q&A. While I think that just like you and I, a lot of people have very valid points of what's wrong with Rise of Skywalker, and we're going to get into some listener questions around it. I do think that most of the critics, just kind of like we talked about in the last episode of TFR, they don't understand Star Wars fandom, and also they don't understand that Star Wars has for decades been a lot more than the movies. And I don't think you can fairly gauge any Star Wars story just on the movies. I mean, how much of this stuff is going to, like this, what's really going to be interesting, and you brought this up before we started recording. In March, we're getting 2 books. We're getting the expanded edition novelization of Rise of Skywalker, and we're getting the art book for Rise of Skywalker. Now, we said last episode that we thought, because the art book was supposed to come out December 20th, and then it got delayed into March, like at the last minute. And we both said, yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, we were kind of conspiratorial about it, right? So, and you brought it up that you think some of this stuff, or that this lends to the credence of why that got delayed, because you're just going to find so much shit that was supposed to be in that movie that's not there.
Yeah, they're cleansing the book.
Yeah, so you think they're actually they're tearing pages out of this?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I think it's possible they're going to try to take as much concept art as they can for that's actually close to what's in the movie. And you're not going to get, like, the Force Awakens art book was amazing because it is a treasure trove of unused ideas, including ideas from George Lucas. Yeah. And this is another thing is that it's also been rumored that George Lucas had involvement in the Rise of Skywalker, but everything that he contributed to the movie was completely cut out by Disney.
Right.
And so if there's any of that kind of stuff, any art, any, concepts or ideas that came from him, I have a feeling that's all being stripped out of the book and probably being replaced with, whatever they could come up with the last minute to fill up the book. Yeah.
And what would be really crazy, and I have another point to get to about the novel, but what would be really crazy is if this was like, I'm not a football fan, but growing up, I used to watch the Super Bowl or whatever. That way in high school, you could talk to everybody the next day. And I remember, like, when whoever would win, it was the Buffalo Bills or whoever the fuck would win, they'd already have the t-shirts that said, Super Bowl champions. So they must have already made the t-shirts that said the Dallas Cowboys actually won, well, the Bills never won. It was actually the Cowboys that won. Doesn't matter. Anyway, whatever, the opposing team, they both had t-shirts ready. This would be really interesting if there were original editions. If your theory is true, if there's somewhere there are original editions of what was the complete art book, because it was so late in the game, stuff had to have gone to the printers already.
Yeah.
For it to ship. It was so late in the game. I bet there's, if this is happening, the original edition's probably out there somewhere, and I bet somebody's got it.
Well,
go ahead.
I don't know that an original edition exists in physical format.
Right.
These books do take a lot of time to produce in the pipeline. I have a feeling is that around the time that they started doing the reshoots and Disney started getting involved in cutting JJ out of the editing, I think the decision was probably made around there to scrap the book that they were working on and start on what we're going to end up getting in March.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. One thing that's going to be interesting, this is the second point I want to get to, is that if any of the stuff talked about in this Reddit leak, and sorry, Disney, you can't delete it. If any of the stuff gets talked about in the expanded edition of the novel, oh boy. I mean, what people are going to say, because then that's just going to add validity to a lot of, especially the more controversial stuff on the business end of things that's in this Reddit leak. So that's something we're going to keep an eye out for. I still stand by my statement that I think the novel for Rise of Skywalker can end up being a tremendous novel and a tremendous story, because you don't have to worry about the cinematography. You don't have to worry about the pacing. You don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. So we will be keeping an eye on that. That's for sure. So, I mean, any other comments on this leak, Rob?
Like I said, my last words are really close to my first words. Is that all of this is very plausible.
Yeah, considering what happened to like Gareth Edwards, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think some of it might be a little hyperbolic, but then again, who knows? I mean, there's according to this leak, there were incidents where J.J. Abrams was literally yelling at Disney execs, and saying, why don't you just make this made by Lucasfilm movie instead of having him as the director.
Whatever happened to directors saying put Alan Smithy up? Like,
right. Yeah. And that's just his thing is like, and I guess this is kind of like, will be my biggest criticism of J.J. Abrams if all this turns out to be anywhere near true is the guy has no backbone. Because if he actually was for standing up for artistic integrity and had confidence in his own work, then he would have insisted that the movie be an Alan Smithy movie.
Right. Which, for those that don't know, directors used to, when the cut would not be what they approved, they would tell the studio to put Alan Smithy, that name, in place of it. This is probably best known. Well, there's a few movies, but probably best known with like the 3-hour version of Dune, of David Lynch's Dune, where they use that. What do you got?
And I could be totally wrong too. I mean, I'm just thinking this just now that it could very well be that there was something in his contract where he couldn't do that.
Well, that's what I wonder, because I haven't seen it in a long time. I do wonder if they say that you can't do that.
Yeah, because it has been quite some time that anybody has done that in a movie, and I wonder if maybe that's just a standard part of contracts for directors these days, is they're just not allowed to do that.
I mean, because it's bad PR. Like, if a director like isn't allowing his name to be put on it, I mean, it would make sense because Disney, with just about every movie, other than amazingly Force Awakens and Last Jedi, has been very heavy-handed, where they either throw out the directors, whole cloth, like with Solo, right, or they bring in a fixer like Tony Gilroy, with Rogue One, where it's supposed to be Gareth Edwards. I mean, they'll do this. Again, I go back to, I don't think JJ can make a movie that is this flawed. Like, I'm not saying he's a great filmmaker, but this is on another level for him as far as being poor. And we know he wasn't supposed to be the guy doing this, right? It's supposed to be Colin Trevorrow.
Right.
But bringing in him was a marketing tactic in itself, right? Because of the backlash to Last Jedi. Because before then, you even had Star Wars fans saying, yeah, let's give Rian Johnson episode 9 while we're at it, because we knew there were problems with Trevorrow. And who the fuck knows what Trevorrow knows? I mean, none of this speaks well. Go ahead.
I still hold that. I mean, I actually think Trevorrow is a good director.
I agree. Yeah.
And I don't think he was willing to put up with Disney's bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessarily him being fired by Disney. I think he just as much walked out as he was, told to hit the bricks.
Oh yeah. And we've talked about this before, but I mean, I literally think, and I support Colin Trevorrow. Like, I mean, I love the guy because I think he's literally going to war with Disney. I mean, he is, Jurassic Park is his battle tank effectively. And I don't know, he's out for revenge. I mean, that's just the way I see it. Like, I think he's out to hurt somebody, in Hollywood style. And it's interesting. Yeah. Really, Disney could have gotten away with just putting J.J. Abrams' name on it as director, and J.J. didn't even really have to be there, other than the fact that today, I mean, you have, the paparazzi and whoever else all over the place. There's no way they'd know that J.J. wasn't not on the set, so you kind of have to have him there. But, I mean, they really could have gotten away with that. I mean, they totally brought him in as a way of appeasing the fan base and probably investors as well, because Force Awakens didn't get the level of negative reaction that Last Jedi got. Yeah, I could believe this, that they totally fucked up his movie. I mean, it really, Feels like a Highlander 2 situation, which that's the second time we've mentioned that in reference to the sequel trilogy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, and I said this back when Colin Trevorrow left the project, is that, I mean, I wouldn't even expect JJ's cut of the movie to be like this amazing thing that like fixed the entire sequel trilogy. I think there's too many problems in its entirety to ever fix.
Yeah.
And I just I yeah, I really do believe that Trevorrow walked away. I said this when it happened. I said, you know, I felt that episode 9 was going to be the return to mediocrity.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, but I called it. You know?
No, you're on point. You're on point. And the more you watch this, the more you're right. But you know, and what's really sad is we have, I mean, and fortunately the internet doesn't forget, because we have the quote, and this is so ridiculous, for Daisy Ridley to say that she doesn't think she'll come back to the character because she doesn't think a movie could be done better. That's fucking outrageous for her to say based on this movie. I mean, that's pure marketing. But we know she said... Well,
I mean, that's totally ridiculous, because we also have quotes of her saying that she thought the relationship between her and Kylo Ren was toxic and disgusting.
Right. So that's crazy. But the one thing that might have been some honesty from her, some emotional honesty, is years ago, she said she had a conversation with Colin Trevorrow, about what's going to happen to her character in episode 9, and she went to tears because she thought it was so beautiful.
Right.
What a goddamn shame we don't get that. I want to know what the fuck that was.
Yeah. Well, I think Rian Johnson probably screwed that, because I mean, and that's another thing that this leak brings up is that apparently it's not just Colin Trevorrow that had, you know, personal beef with Rian Johnson. Apparently JJ did too. Apparently these two guys hate each other.
Oh, I bet this guy's a dick. This is, oh man. So I forget what I was listening to, and somebody called it right. He says, how did they give a Star Wars movie to a guy that made a mediocre science fiction film and directed a couple episodes of television? And like, whatever your feelings about Looper are, like, you look at the pedigree and you're like, yeah, wait a minute. How did this guy get a Star Wars movie like this? Especially episode 8.
Yeah. I mean, I have my theories. I mean, I very much feel that Rian Johnson is very much the product of the cultural zeitgeist, at least according to Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, if Rise of Skywalker was a movie made by committee, you know, The Last Jedi was definitely a movie made by Twitter.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The script reads right off of Reddit. Ironically, I agree. Or off of Twitter. Yeah. I was. Boy, I'll tell you something. This, and I know you jumped in on this game too. Speaking of on Twitter, not that Twitter activism does jack shit, but you know, whatever. Sometimes we just got to say our piece. And the hashtag "Thank you, Rian Johnson" that was going around for the past couple weeks is ridiculous. I don't understand that at all. Like, I don't get the defenders of this guy.
Yeah.
Like, where are they coming from? I mean, I know you responded with beautifully, no, hashtag thank you, George Lucas, for fucking creating all this shit. And and I said hashtag thank you, Timothy Zahn. I mean,
and it's truly depressing to see that you go and you click on that hashtag and you see the number of the other people that are saying that. And it is such a minuscule number of people. It's pathetic.
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree. This is a hell, man. We could go on this forever because this is just a hell of a thing.
But no, I think the Rian Johnson thing. I think part of that is marketing too, because he's pushing Knives Out still.
Yes.
You know, and that thing has been all the hype around that movie has totally been AstroTurf. 100%.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't care who the hell says, oh, this movie's great. I mean, something that has to be made very clear with other reviewers, and a difference between this show, as in TIE Fighter Renegades, compared to other Star Wars podcasts. I don't care if I never get invited to a premiere. I don't care if Disney likes me or not, you know, and I know Rob feels the same way.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of these like Collider. I mean, I'll name some. If I got to name names, I'd name names. But you have a lot of Star Wars news sources, a lot of just genre news sources, a lot of Star Wars podcasts where they are afraid to talk about certain things and say what they really feel because they're afraid they're not going to get invited to to another premiere.
Yeah.
I mean, they're terrified of this. And if you can get those, go ahead.
It's access journalism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing that's going on in the rest of the news media. This is everybody's afraid to lose their access to, primary sources.
Right.
And so they're towing the line.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't listen to any of these. I mean, I think most of these people are just full of shit. It's so crazy. Oh man, where to even go from there? You know what? Why don't we get into the questions?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Because goddamn it, we'll just go on forever about this because it's so insane. I'll just end off saying that I think that this Reddit leak is very believable, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I can't confirm that it's true, but just it makes a lot of sense and it fills in a lot of gaps. Let's put it that way. So, all right, we got a lot of questions, people that loved our review of Rise of Skywalker, probably because we have no attachment to Disney's purse strings. Though, to quote another podcaster, I'll say this. If Disney offered me to make a Star Wars movie and they gave me full run of the mill on that damn thing, then I would take back every nasty thing I ever said about Disney. For that shot, you better believe it. Sure thing, Papa Disney, whatever, Uncle Bob, I'm with you. I'd be so kind. But looks like we were just saying, it's not a fun thing to make a Star Wars movie these days. So let's get to the questions. This came in again. A lot of people loved our review. We are honored by that, by how many people got a lot of questions in on it. We have some questions here that we'll get to. I'm sure there's going to be others as this movie goes on. It's going to be a very interesting conversation as the novel comes out and the art book, etc. But here we go. Let's rock with these. So we'll start it off with I'll read what they said about it first, because this was all by one great listener on Twitter, and I'm really honored by his engagement with the show. And I know he's been a longtime supporter of Sovryn Tech as well. He said OMFS, which for those that don't know, that means oh my fucking Satan, and I started that. Anyway, OMFS, I liked Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to watch the movie again and listen to your podcast again, but there is so fucking much that I wish you had talked about. And so I just engaged with him and said, feel free to ask away because we'll get into it. And so here we are getting into it. And Rob, you very poignantly, or very properly said, I should say, you very properly said, it's like, well, the podcast is already going longer than the movie, so we have to stop somewhere. But that's why we're recording so early in January, we might even do another episode this month because there's just so much to talk about right now. And you want to strike while the iron's hot. So here we go. So Palps, as in Palpatine, so Palps is Rey's grandpa now. Isn't he also Anakin's dad? Or am I mixing theory with canon? If so, the Rey/Kylo kiss is at least a step-cousin kiss? How's that for an OG Star Wars incest? Of course, referencing, like Empire Strikes Back when Luke and Leia kissed. But going on, I thought it was so obvious when I watched, but DuckDuckGo is failing me to get a real answer. I always thought Palpatine knocked up Shmi through the Force. Rob, you want to take this one, or I can?
Yeah, there's been some controversy about this too recently because. One of the people from the Lucas film story group has pretty much contradicted the events that were pretty blatantly implied by the Darth Vader comic, where Darth Vader kind of goes into basically the world of the dead.
Yeah.
And
when he's building his castle.
Yeah, and he sees that vision literally of Palpatine, influencing Anakin's birth.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're coming back and saying, oh, well, that was just all in his head. And none of that actually happened.
Well,
and that Anakin is not, was not created by Palpatine, or is related to him whatsoever. Which, I mean, I do agree in part with that. I don't think like Anakin has Palpatine DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything, like the midichlorians were
Right.
what provided that. So
Right.
if anything, the Force, as odd as that sounds, is Anakin's father.
Yeah, which really adds a lot of credence to I think George Lucas's what we know of his original scripts, right? Is that the midichlorians are actually, or the Wills are malicious, or the do you remember reading about that?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because and I say that because that effectively means that, I mean, so seriously, did the midichlorians like rape Shmi? Like how does this work? I don't know. Like, I wonder if that's why they're stepping away from this, because
Yeah,
it has weird implications.
Yeah,
But go ahead. Keep going.
that's definitely an interesting interpretation. But and there's been some backlash to this. Like, I think even Sam Witwer on Twitter was basically saying that he disagrees with the story group's interpretation of this, and that Palpatine was definitely created, or Anakin was created by Palpatine.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it seemed to be the hint going around is that this is exactly what did happen, is that Palpatine, again, he influenced the midichlorians perhaps, but he was behind the birth of Anakin Skywalker. And he always knew that Anakin Skywalker, or we don't have evidence of that necessarily, that he always knew Anakin Skywalker would be coming, but you kind of think he'd have to. Yeah, this is messy.
And I think even in the EU, which I understand all that's not canon, that's all legends now, but I think even in the EU, in the Plagueis novel, they implied that that Anakin was the byproduct of Plagueis and Sidious's dabbling in the Force and messing with the powers of creation of life. But
right.
What Anakin was more of kind of like the backlash from their attempts, whereas as opposed to being the direct result of them.
Yeah. I think overall this speaks to a real problem I've had that I hope gets fixed in Disney's novels and comics with Star Wars, is that they play with this vagueness way too much. Like, they do that book, Legends of Luke Skywalker. Well, we don't know if he actually brought down a Star Destroyer, because it might have happened. We don't know. Or there's the book, A Certain Point of View. Well, yeah, these things might have happened, but really it's all a certain point of view. I mean, and you could say that's even at the heart of Star Wars. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And
go ahead.
And that's funny too, because like the whole thing about Luke Skywalker bringing down a Star Destroyer, I remember that being in a script leak from The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure.
I mean, yeah,
yeah, I don't like this. I don't think personally, I think why, I mean, if the answer is, or if the thing is that, it was all in Vader's head, why would he come up with that? Like that just doesn't make any sense. In fact, we don't even know if Shmi ever told Anakin about his father. I mean, I guess maybe Obi-Wan would have told him later, and he would have found it out, or the fact that he didn't have a father, I should say. This is all very vague, but I just can't think of a good reason why Vader would imagine that. Like, why would he associate Palpatine at all with his birth? Unless it actually happened and he was really seeing it happen. So this gets into weird territory. I do want to mention though, that in fact, we mentioned it earlier, how J.J. Abrams has come out and said that the kiss between Kylo and Rey was not so much a romantic thing. And in fact, I have the direct quote from him. I'm going to read it here quick. And it's, quote, "There is as much of a brother-sister thing between Rey and Kylo Ren as there is a romantic thing." So which that's frankly sounds incestuous in itself, but
it sounds like bullshit to me, but whatever.
That too. Yeah, that too. But he goes on, this is again directly from JJ. So it's not like literally a sexual romantic thing, but it's more like they're bound together in this movie in a crazy spiritual way that again felt romantic to me. Now, to be clear, in religion, you have concepts like what's known in Christianity, you have what's known as the holy kiss, which is a kiss, kind of a brother-sister thing, that's not meant to be romantic, even though I think when various Christian groups throughout the 19th century would reintroduce the concept of the holy kiss, I think it's because they just wanted to make out finally. But that is totally off base from what we're talking about here. Yeah, I can kind of get what he's saying, but yeah, I think he's BSing, and I think he's trying to do damage control around the, this is an abusive relationship argument.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I mean, it was in the leak saying that that the he didn't want the kiss in the movie.
Right, at all. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I believe that, absolutely, because it is weird.
Yeah. So I guess to answer this question, the kiss is weird. If the kiss was forced into the movie by Disney to appease Reylo fans, that's pretty believable. But
yeah.
in universe, it does. I agree. It creates a fucking problem.
I believe that 100%, that was a Disney decision.
Yeah.
And here again, they're trying to appeal to white cis Reylo fans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that JJ comes out with this. I mean, look, the actors and everybody involved, or a lot of people involved in this movie, are coming out and are basically attacking Disney now. I mean, Oscar Isaac's coming out saying it's a bunch of homophobes. Boyega's getting into a whole bunch of other crap. I mean, just trying to show how abusive the relationship really is. He shared those 4 pictures on Twitter. He apparently made some Reylo fan cry, which, what the fuck?
Who cares?
I know, right? I can't imagine an actor telling me something that's going to make me cry when it has to do with, my own shipping fantasy. What the fuck?
I'm just going to say this.
Go for it.
Identity fandom is terrifying.
Whoa. Come on, you got to give me more than that.
I mean, no. I mean, when your identity is so wrapped up in one particular kind of fandom or another,
mm-hmm.
it can be downright terrifying. The lengths that these people will go. I mean, there's people making death threats.
Yeah.
Against John Boyega, J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Whoever. That's just ridiculous.
That is terrifying.
And like I said, this is all because the people have basically hitched their identity to whatever this, Reylo shipping or whatever, mm-hmm. that they mentally can't process the idea that, that they got what they wanted for a brief moment and then had it yanked away from them when Ben Solo died.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sorry, but get over it.
Yeah. I was very fortunate when I was young. I saw footage of, and this is very related and I've mentioned this many times because I think it's such an amazing moment, where Gene Roddenberry was at a convention directly getting heckled by fans to the point that they're throwing garbage almost up on the stage because they hated the character of Wesley Crusher so much. So this is back in the late 80s.
Right.
And Gene Roddenberry basically told all of them off and said, what are you talking about? This is for me. This is mine. And I'll have Wesley in there all the way. And he defended the decision all the way. And somebody's got to come out there and say that to these fucking fans,
Yeah.
I mean, and look, if as fans, if you don't like the way it is, that's why we've got a thing called fan fiction,
Right. Right.
That's why we've got indie films. That's why you have iMovie 2, or whatever fucking version that's up to. These are why you have all these things. You can handle the business your goddamn self. But yeah, well, anyway. I mean,
that's the reason why, fan fiction existed in the first place, is to give people an outlet.
Yeah.
Against, the studio control of these franchises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. Anyway,
but I gotta ask you a question, Brian.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, we're both huge Star Wars sweaties.
Oh yes.
But do you think you would be any different if Star Wars didn't exist?
No.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I don't need Star Wars to be me.
No, yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
You're
you
right.
know,
Okay. Yeah.
this is what I mean by identity fandom. This is like
Yep.
these people literally just can't live without, their idea of Star Wars being, the holy gospel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, frankly, like Star Wars hasn't it has not influenced me either way as far as, as far as like any kind of like life philosophy
Yeah.
or anything like that. Not even
No,
close.
no.
Now, I mean, that's not true for all franchises. Like if you asked me the same question about Star Trek, I know I'd be a completely different
Yeah,
person.
but Star Trek has an entire ethical framework.
Yes.
Yes.
Well said.
I mean, whereas Star Wars kind of pretends it won.
Yeah, and it also had like 30 years of internal logic. It's gone now, but
Yeah.
it did have like
and everybody who claims that Star Wars is derivative or this that they're all right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very much based on Kurosawa movies. Yes, it very much stole from Dune. Yes, it very much name your science fiction franchise that occurred before Star Wars, and yes, it's all Flash Gordon too, especially Flash Gordon.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, right on. Well, yeah, that's a great point to bring up because those kind of, I mean, that's just unbelievable. But those people are out there.
Yeah.
And oh man, I mean, the diatribe I could go on about. I am going to revisit this subject, and I might even have Rob on for like a Q&A or something because I want to talk about this more. We're not going to do it here, but I want to talk about this subject more because I think this kind of person can only exist in the civilization we're in right now, and that's a problem. But fuck. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get back to the questions. Yeah, I mean, so to end it off, I guess I'm in the camp or in the interpretation that really Palpatine just influenced the midichlorians to birth Anakin. That still creates a very weird dynamic of potential incest, or like at least kind of I don't even know how to put that. But I will say this, like the idea of bloodlines in Star Wars is something that is very heavily implied, but not often talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brought up in Last Jedi. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's only gotten worse with the sequel trilogy. I don't think really that was George Lucas's intention.
Right.
Was for all these bloodlines to be so important, and that there was some sort of kind of like dynasty being built here. I don't think that's what he was going for. I don't think he was, but I think that it, despite that, it's implied, and other people have taken it and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, you have Luke directly saying it in Last Jedi, that powerful Skywalker blood, right? Like he just says it.
Yeah, God, that was such a mistake.
Yeah, I agree. But point being, or the reason I bring that up is that this can be, if Star Wars wants to go there, the idea of, I mean, we have the Earth, the real corollary of, the royal families, where they believe in the purity of their bloodlines, and they absolutely engage in incest. I'm not saying it's right or it's a good thing, quite the opposite. But bottom line, like it's an idea. It's something it's not just an idea. It's something that actually happens in real life, or that has happened with evil fucking people, which I would say monarchs are. So for it to be in Star Wars, yeah, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and for Disney to flirt with various aspects of feudalism and fascism and all these other things, I mean, that's what they do. That's what they do with all their evil. That way they don't have to actually create villainous characters, or like ones that have development. But anything else you want to add on that one?
No.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that he brought up. Okay, let's get to the next one here. Then there is the essence transfer when Palpatine is tempting Rey to kill him. Nod to the Bane trilogy. Do you want me to take this one, or do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, so the Bane trilogy, which is not that's not canon anymore. Those books. But is it a nod to it, like many things have been within the new canon? Yeah, I mean, the idea of essence transfer in the Sith is, in the old EU, this was a really big deal. And actually, even in the new canon, you have Monin, right? Or is it Momin, right?
Yeah.
Who basically lived in a mask for thousands of years and could transfer his essence. I mean, we'll use that term. He could transfer his essence into like a, whoever was around. Like when Vader was building Fortress Vader on Mustafar, he would have whoever put on the mask, and then they would basically become Momin for a little bit. And even in the greatest comic book that I think Marvel has done for Star Wars so far in the new canon, in the Lando comic book, you have where those two cat people or whatever get influenced because aboard the Imperialis, the mask of Momin is there, and they get influenced by the mask of Momin. So the idea that there is like a transfer or an essence transfer that happens, that still appears to still be in new canon in some way. But it looks like you need a relic maybe to make it happen. But it was definitely a big part of the old EU. And is this a reference to it? Maybe, because, and it's going to get into it in later questions here. But this concept of like that Palpatine is all of the Sith is a very confusing statement that after multiple watchings, I still can't really make sense of it. And the visual dictionary gives no answers. So this is something where we might just have to, the answer is our hands are up right now. We don't know what it means.
Yeah. I actually got a hold of visual dictionary the other day.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And one thing that stood out to me immediately is the visual dictionary, and this is just a small gripe with me, repeats several times that Ben Solo destroyed Luke's Jedi Academy.
Right.
Whereas it's contradicted by the Rise of Kylo Ren comic.
Yeah.
So, here again, I think these people are, the whole purpose of getting rid of the EU was to clean all this crap up and, make the greater Star Wars plot more coherent and to give new Star Wars authors more creative freedom and not be tied to what came before. But we've just seen time and time again how they're making a mess of it again, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and B, none of these people have any original creative ideas of their own, because as we'll talk about later, they just keep on bringing back characters that were from the EU.
Yeah, agreed. I think, we'll talk more about this a little bit later. It does appear, I'm kind of hoping Disney is getting away from this. And actually, when we talk about the comic books, it might be pointing in that direction, that now that episode 9 is over, we can actually start answering shit and not making everything so fucking vague. But they've got to answer a lot of shit in episode 9 first before we can really get there. I totally hear you on that. Do you want to go on to the next question?
Sure.
All right. So next question is directly related. Speaking of the Bane trilogy, how does Palpatine have all the Sith inside him? Did the Bane/Zana essence transfer theory continue on all throughout the Sith legacy? Oh boy. This is the thing. All the Sith thing, I've read some theories as to what that means, but none of us really know what the fuck that means. Just like there's confusion. How is Rey all of the Jedi? Like, is one the antecedent to the other? And so how does that work? It's very confusing. Go ahead.
It probably, the thing with Rey would probably make more sense if we got the JJ cut of the movie, because apparently in that final confrontation between Rey and Palpatine, all of the Force ghosts, we don't just hear them, but we actually see them surrounding her.
Right.
And like kind of creating a barrier between her and all of the Sith in the background.
Yeah. So if that's true, that gives, I would say that points at that being all of the Sith does not mean that all of the Sith are inside you.
Yeah,
even though,
no.
Yeah.
I think this is just Palpatine,
kind of waxing poetic.
Yeah, something. It's kind of like it's the same as him saying, "I am the Senate."
Oh yeah. It's like him saying, "I am the Sith."
Literally the Senate.
Right.
But he effectively controls all of the Senate, and at this time of period, I guess he is the embodiment of all the Sith at that time.
Yeah. I mean, and could make, and that statement I think makes sense considering he really has no protege. He has no, apprentice to teach. Yeah. I mean, the concept in the old EU of essence transfer, like that was a concept that, because George Lucas laid down the rule that Sith can't be Force ghosts, this was how they got immortality. This was their shot at immortality with essence transfer. Again, in the new canon, it seems to still be a thing because of Momin. It's abundantly clear. The
thing with Momin brings up another good point to something we talked about earlier. If the realm that Darth Vader went into in that comic, if that didn't actually exist and that was all in his head, then where did Momin come from? Because he physically comes out of that gateway.
Oh, yeah. And it
has to be real in some sense.
Right. Yeah, see, that would cheapen shit because, like, when he saw Padme, like, I remember reading the comic and I'm like, wow, that is intense. Like, I loved it when it happened, and the idea that was really Padme that he was encountering again. Holy shit. Yeah, Disney has to stop with the vagueness. It's just, they're fucking shit up. I'm going to get mad. Do you have anything to add on the all the Sith or the Sith legacy thing here?
The only thing I have to add is this just, I mean, if we're going to take a Rise of Skywalker at face value, then we know for certain now that Palpatine never gave a shit about the Rule of Two. Ever. Yeah.
Well, maybe he was the first guy to stop caring, and that's why he allowed for, like, the Inquisitors, right, to become a thing.
Right.
I mean, so one thing that I actually liked that Rise of Skywalker said, or I feel like it said, was that it reiterated, or maybe this isn't something else, but there is the constant reiteration in Star Wars that the Emperor really does have a problem with overconfidence. Like that's an issue of his.
Yeah.
And so the idea that somehow he thought he could end the Rule of Two that Bane put down, I could almost believe that, like that's something that would be a very interesting storyline to cover if they did a Palpatine TV series, but I don't know if we'd ever get that. Anyway, or maybe he's the other way around. Maybe he's the first guy who thinks he can actually be the only one because, speaking of Highlander, but the next question here, let's get to that. So it says, then what about the "to restore the one true Emperor" reference? Did they pull that out of Mickey Mouse's booty? This is another thing where we don't have the info. Like, what the fuck is this Force dyad?
Yeah.
The idea of transferring the life essence from, Kylo and from Rey. I mean, we get an idea of what that is based upon the idea of how, Baby Yoda and how Rey and Kylo can all actually heal other creatures by giving some of their life force. So there's some precedent for that. But yeah, this really, in many ways, comes out of nowhere. And the ability to steal a life essence. It does make me wonder. I came up with the theory that, okay, maybe this is a dark side power, and that's why you never saw the Jedi use it to heal anybody. But then if I was the Emperor, I'd be life sucking everybody, at the height of the Empire. You know what I mean? If it's going to regenerate him and empower him, I would have been life sucking Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, give me all the midichlorians, baby. I don't know. We don't know. I don't think there's really an answer to this one. Go ahead.
Maybe he was.
And,
because Vader was fucked up. Do you think that Darth Vader was more or less powerful than Anakin Skywalker?
Darth Vader. Well, I don't know if I really
in terms of his connection to the Force.
I would argue Darth Vader is more powerful. I guess when I think that, but what do you got?
Well, I think it his connection to the Force was probably do you honestly think would Darth Vader be more powerful had he not gotten tossed in the lava and burnt up?
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. He would have been. Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. Anakin Skywalker could control like the Mortis gods. I mean, that's pretty fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I would speculate that, that Sidious saw that coming, and he was like, yeah, this is the way I can put like, some brakes on this guy's power, because he's supposed to be the chosen one. And so I'll get him all messed up and basically siphon off that power to myself.
It would be, it would be really interesting if they'd actually double down on the idea that Palpatine created Anakin in one form or other. And he did so wanting to have like this kind of vergence of the Force that he could constantly like drain like a vampire.
And that's why I'm not hard against the whole dyad thing, because the idea of a Force vergence wasn't original to the sequel trilogy.
No, it's in the prequels.
Yeah, and they even mentioned, in the Force Awakens, when one vergence in the light side rises, its equal in the dark side, comes about as well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, I think, where they were kind of laying the groundwork for the dyad thing, I think.
Okay.
And I do think that's somewhat plausible. It's not my favorite thing in the Star Wars universe, but I could see where they were trying to lay some of that down in the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, like the concept of the Force dyad, we don't know much about it, but like I want to know more. Like I'm interested. Like I don't think it's a bad idea. I just want to know a whole hell of a lot more, right? Yeah, I hear you. Again, this is another one where like, what answers do we have? We can speculate, and maybe now we're allowed to speculate because maybe they have a vision over at Disney now, but I doubt it. I don't know. Now that episode 9's over, but want to go on to the next question?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So it says, I don't know, but in my opinion, Disney had dropped the ball on the Sith end of the universe. If they want to do a remake of the Bane trilogy or Revan, I'd be okay with it. Just hope they take the opportunity to leave the original trilogy characters alone for a while. Yeah, I mean, to the second part, and I want to know what you think, Rob, about leaving the original trilogy characters alone for a while. Please do. Like, in at least in the movies, I don't need that right now. I'd love for the. Go ahead.
I mean, they're dead, so.
Yeah, they're gone. So, yeah, fair. The Revan thing. I mean, would you be fine if they left the original trilogy characters alone for a good 10 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that, I mean, before Rise of Skywalker came out, we heard that there was going to be sort of like a hiatus in Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're hearing that, oh no, they've got plans for coming out with another Star Wars movie in 2022.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not much of a hiatus.
No. And I mean, and I hope they've actually been working on this already, because that means only 2 years before it drops.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that interview on the Star Wars show with Bob Iger, and he did say like the next Star Wars movie is very important.
Wow. Yeah. No, I did. I caught that too. That was somewhat interesting interview. Not that you're going to get anything like really groundbreaking, but there is that. Yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, I think we're both okay with the hiatus. And again, the OT characters, I mean, you can't do anything in the future. If they want to do something in the middle, people have hinted about that. But
yeah, I've heard some people saying that like they were really excited about that CGI scene between Luke and Leia, younger Luke and Leia. And one guy was even saying that like, oh, just give me a whole movie of that. And just put him like, no.
Yeah. Not unless Dave Filoni's heading it, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Figure sort your shit out and then make that.
Yeah. So let me get to the first half of this question, or of this point. I mean, Bane is canon himself.
Yes. We got that
Revan,
in the Clone Wars. Right,
in the Clone Wars, towards the end of that. Which, that gets to things too. Fuck. Like that last, in season 6, that last arc with Yoda, where he goes to the homeworld of the midichlorians. But I don't know where I'm going to go with that. So
well, I know where I'd go with that. I mean, apparently a lot of the stuff that George Lucas wanted to get into Episode 9 had to do with that and the Mortis,
Right.
Trilogy of episodes.
Yeah.
So, and apparently the Sith dagger originally was supposed to be the Mortis dagger. In
Episode 9?
Yeah.
Oh, where is that from? Is that in that leak?
Yeah, it's just it's not in the Reddit leak, but I actually heard about this like I don't know, I'd say about a month ago.
Oh man, what the fuck? That would have been great. I mean, because the one thing we're all dying to know more about is the Mortis trilogy, right? Or the Mortis gods. Right. You get those nice little hints in Rebels, but we want more.
But here again, Disney isn't interested in making a movie that rewards Star Wars fans for watching all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
They have to make a product for mass consumption, which most people are going to be going, scratching their heads going, whoa, what is that all about? I don't understand.
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing. Like, I get it that they won't do it in a movie, but I just with Mandalorian, they are doing exactly what we want them to do.
Yes, exactly.
And so as long as they do it I don't care if they do it on Disney Plus, just do it, just make it happen somewhere. But I mean, yeah, that does speak to, well, shit, movies, there's never going to be that much on the line. Well, anyway, to get to more of this question, an interesting thing that is in the visual dictionary is the names in the Sith Eternal, in that army, the names of like the platoons or the troops, like there's the Revan troop or division. And like, so the name of the Sith stormtroopers, the name of their battalions, that's what it is, battalions. The name of the battalions are actually the names of ancient Sith lords. And one of them is the Revan battalion, which I thought was really, really interesting in that. Yeah. So they're looking in that direction. I don't think that just got dropped in there for really no reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, originally Revan was supposed to be in the Clone Wars too.
Right. Yes. Right.
So, and somebody had said that one of the statues on Exegol was Revan. I don't know if that's interesting. True or not, but that would be interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with, they said they're going to basically do something Knights of the Old Republic, right? We didn't know what that was. We don't know what that is.
Yeah. I think that was probably the Benioff and Weiss thing. And so that's
and that's dead now.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, Disney doesn't know what to do with villains in general. Okay. This is true of the Marvel movies, of basically everything that they do. They suck at villains. So to say that they dropped the ball on the Sith end of the universe, like this question asker put down, yeah, I get it, but no one's really done a great job with like the Sith end of things. I mean, I think like the best handling of the Sith overall was by Dark Horse, like in the Tales of the Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah. And then also the Jedi Academy game was a great handling of the Sith. But other than that, like no one's really done a great job with that. And I want them to do better. Wizards of the Coast had an interesting dark side source book that I used to read cover to cover over and over again. Again, I'm not saying Star Wars influenced me at all, but, but that's, I get you that they kind of dropped the ball. They did not explain enough, certainly in the movie and even in the visual dictionary. Like, it's interesting. We finally get somewhat of what is really the philosophy of the Sith. Like, we know their mantra, right? Which is, there is no peace. There's only passion. They kind of go down that whole list. But in the visual dictionary, they say that they believe in might for might's sake. Now they don't delve any deeper into that. I mean, I'm amazed that Disney even let that get written down. That might be just a way of saying might is right. I would love to know more, but it does appear in general that I don't even think it's just Disney. Hollywood in general does shit with villains. Like they just don't know how to make a good villain anymore, for the most part.
I mean, and speaking of like, if Disney listened to either one of us, I mean, what would be a great idea is to have them make a Disney Plus series about like the Lost Tribe of the Sith.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And then they could even tie it in to, the Rise of Skywalker and explain where all these Sith cultists came from.
Yeah.
Because they just appear out of nowhere in this movie.
Right. And you get zero explanation. except for in the visual dictionary. You find out that they've been there forever, and they have children, and they've been raising an army forever, and all this.
Yeah. They make a series based on that planet.
Oh, I'll take an Exegol series all day. Fuck yeah.
For like, we have all these Sith, conniving and plotting each other and backstabbing, and a couple guys trying to rise to the top of the cult.
Star Wars could copy Game of Thrones all day long with that if they want to. They have my blessing, and I hate Game of Thrones, but here's the kiss. There you go. You have my blessing to make an entire series about Exegol. I am totally, everything you just said, Rob, I am completely on board with. I would love it. Or fuck, if you need to, Rian Johnson already did, copy the new Battlestar Galactica, and just have no heroes whatsoever in your cast. Everybody's just out to fucking kill everybody.
Right.
I would watch that. As long as it's not fucking with another franchise. If it's Star Wars, I'm there. I'm down. All right, I love it, Rob. Anything else to say on this, or we can get to the next couple little bits? All right, so here we go. Next little question here is: Kylo equals Vader, but better since he was able to bring someone back from the dead. Yeah, I mean this Kylo saving Rey and bringing her back from the dead. This gets into that weird thing around bloodlines, where, like, wait a minute. So is Luke more powerful than Vader? And then is Ben Solo more powerful than his mom and uncle? Like, how exactly does that work? And part of the problem here is that Disney, or at least J.J. Abrams and even Daisy Ridley, and we'll get into the story in a minute, won't fucking touch the midichlorians. They won't talk about them. Yeah. It's where it'd be such an easy way to resolve this affair. This, maybe even this question is, who's more powerful? Well, who's got the higher blood count, or, the midichlorian count? But they'll never do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I see where you're going there, but at the same time, part of me kind of rubs against that because it stinks too much of Marvel mutant power levels.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Because you used to get those books from Marvel that would just basically it would go over all of the mutant characters and rank their power levels in certain ways and this and that. Mm-hmm. And that's fine for Marvel. That's fine for comic book stories. I don't know if I necessarily want that in Star Wars.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've always interpreted the Force as being something that reacts to your emotions. And when the midichlorians became a part of it, is that basically the midichlorians would, like, kind of be like moths to a flame if your emotions were a flame, or they'd attach to you more if you had no emotions going for you.
Yeah, see, I like that idea, and that, like, if you're going to use the midichlorians as sort of like a Jedi power gauge, mm-hmm. understand that it can fluctuate.
Right, exactly. So, like, if you have a ton of hate, you can access the dark side more, right? And like you could, and somebody who doesn't have the midichlorian count of Anakin Skywalker, if they hated that much, they could blow up a planet, right? Or if you can be as tranquil as Master Yoda, you can move anything, but it all comes down to, like, your emotional. I mean, it's kind of a Green Lantern thing, but, like, the emotional spectrum, like where you're at with that and the strength at which you're expressing it is how much of the Force you can basically command or, use. So Kylo being better than Vader. Yeah, no, I don't. Kylo, it's amazing how many people are saying Kylo and Adam Driver are like that he was such a great actor in this and that he's such a great character. And I mean, coming from, like, podcasters and Star Wars news sites and commentators, Adam Driver's like the one guy not coming out ripping on anything. And I almost wonder if Disney's saying, hey, everybody, praise Adam Driver so he'll keep his mouth shut about what's going on. Because I feel like Kylo Ren is one of the worst characters to come out of this whole sequel trilogy.
Well, I mean, let's
go ahead.
I mean, let's be fair. I mean, I honestly don't think that any of the actors in the sequel trilogy are terrible actors.
No, they're not. You're right.
I do think they were all done a disservice.
Yes. Yeah.
I do think that the writing in this movie did not live up to their talents.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you feel about this with Kylo being better than Vader? I mean, where do you want to sit with that?
No, I mean, sorry, to me, he's still a Vader knockoff, you know.
Sure.
And even in his own estimation, he's always trying to be as, good or bad as Vader was. And
Yeah, right.
somebody trying to copycat, I don't care what piece of fiction or even in real life, when you're trying to emulate somebody else, that puts a hard ceiling on how good you can ever be.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, yeah, and I also think, and this is kind of reading into it, this has never been a direct statement, even though there have been like kind of like there used to be a comic book called Star Wars Tales back in the 90s. It was really hot. That kind of pointed at this, but kind of psychologizing the characters. I don't think Kylo Ren has anywhere near the amount of hate that Darth Vader does, because Darth Vader hates himself.
Yeah.
And that is as powerful, in my opinion, as it gets. And like the reason why Vader is so powerful is because he is fueled by his own
pathos.
Yes. Right. I mean, he's
where's I mean, I do think that Kylo does hate himself to a certain degree, that he's, there's that part of him that wants to get back to being Ben Solo, but it's, quote, too late.
Yeah.
But here again, he doesn't have, nearly the amount of pathos that, Anakin / Darth Vader had.
Right.
And he hasn't been through the trauma that Anakin went through.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good chance at the end of episode 3 that Vader was going to tear down an entire section of Coruscant. I mean, when he found out that Padme died. I mean, It was that big of a deal. And when you read it in the Vader comics, just the scale of that destruction, the Emperor flying backwards. I mean, it was bad. Kylo never had anything like that. Never had a moment like that where he's like, I mean, he would just tear shit up with his lightsaber. He never felt the hate that could, shake a planet, that could create an earthquake.
Right. And that was the other thing I noted too, is like, Kylo would have his little temper tantrums with his lightsaber, but whenever, Vader got pissed off, he'd straight up choke a bitch.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. I mean, again, Vader leveled entire populations on his own. I mean, we've seen that in new canon comics. I mean, yeah. Anyway, yeah, Vader still tops him. So, all right, well, let's go to the last bit here. Long story short, in my opinion. Oh, anyway, it just has a comment about the podcast, so we can skip that. But great questions. We totally will field any and all of your questions. You can reach out to us on Twitter. You can email me, bbs@sovereigntech.com, to get the questions in. We love to talk about this, and these conversations are worth having, especially with, frankly, the amount of mysteries that Rise of Skywalker came up with. I mean, it could easily have stolen the name from a tremendous game, and the movie could have been called Mysteries of the Sith, and it would have been a much more apropos title, in my opinion. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Because that's all I'm left with. Is like, okay, wait, okay. I mean, and the Visual Dictionary answers some things. And a lot of the people that are reviewing this movie just have no knowledge, be it on purpose or not. They have no knowledge of the amount of information that is out there that fills a lot of the plot holes that people are seeing in this movie. But well, regardless, they're not bothering with it. So, but that's why TIE Fighter Renegades is here. So anyway, thank you so much to the listener, a genuinely great listener. And I great guy. And I just appreciate you, getting in touch with us about it and being so passionate. Rob and I always feel better when other people share our passions. So thank you for that. Well, how about we want to get into the next bit of business here, Rob?
Sure.
So, I don't even know where to go next with it. All right, we'll go a little bit out of order here. You shared this with me. There was that big Fortnite event that happened just before Rise of Skywalker appeared. And basically, if you could even get into the Fortnite event, which I had heard, I don't play Fortnite. I don't give two ass slaps about it. If you played it, apparently you heard the opening message that the Emperor supposedly gave to the galaxy saying, hey, I'm back, motherfuckers, and the Sith are going to take over. You got to hear that in Fortnite if you were able to get into it. Because I talked to some people who play Fortnite and they said they couldn't even access the servers or whatever. They couldn't get on to even experience it. How do you feel about this, Rob?
Lame. God.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
I mean, they even had Ian McDiarmid, like, it was him, quoting it, saying it.
Yeah. It's such a cheap ploy.
Yeah.
To try marketing. To appeal. Yeah, it's a marketing ploy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's really all I have to say about it. It's disappointing. That shit should have been in the movie.
Yeah, it really should have. And you know what? I mean, speaking of this 3-hour cut, it does make you wonder if this was, because I have a hard time believing that they told Ian McDiarmid, here, just say this, we're going to put it in Fortnite, and like, I just don't think that would sell the guy. But other than that, this is something. Go ahead.
Somebody did have a freaking hilarious tweet. That was, I think they were referencing this, but it wasn't like really explicit. But the guy who does a Star Wars comic, not the official ones from Marvel, but he does his own Star Wars comics online. He put it out there. Episode 9 crawl, The Dead Speak, Palpatine's actual message. Hey, it's me, everybody. Everybody's favorite undead scheming grandpa here with some new content for you. I was thinking, man, this would have been a lot more relevant and in touch with the Fortnite crowd than what they actually did.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, this is something I went on a big rant recently on a Zomia ONE Underground Q&A about, again, how a lot of these critics don't understand that Star Wars is more than the movies, and that's intentional, and I defend the idea of putting things in books or comics that are somehow relevant to a movie that you can't really understand unless you read in the movie. You can't understand it if you didn't read the books or comics. I defend that idea, but to put this in Fortnite, it's not a Star Wars property. Like, that's the part that I don't like about this. Like, that'd be fine if, and I don't know what they could put it into. It'd be one thing if they put it into a comic somewhere or something like that. It still should have been in the movie. And again, it probably was. I mean, it's probably audio that they just ripped and they thought, hey, we can make some money off of this, from like a deleted scene. But yeah, if it was a Star Wars game, if I don't know how they put it in Battlefront, but I would have been a little more amenable to it. I would have been like, okay, fine. But putting it in Fortnite, this is just stupid.
The problem I have with it is it is actual plot contextual element,
right,
that exists now in another universe,
right,
and where it doesn't belong.
Yeah, and that's what some people.
I mean, if they continue with this shit, then I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, Emperor Palpatine in Guardians of the Galaxy 4.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
Right. Yeah, this raises some things, and this is a problem in modern Hollywood too. And it's just to get people talking. The idea that Fortnite is somehow part of the Star Wars universe is ridiculous, and like, that shouldn't even really be suggested. That creates so many issues, and that annoys me. I mean, it does raise the question of, E.T. is in episode 1, right?
Right. Like,
he's in the Senate. And this is a question I've tried asking a lot of people that maybe could give somewhat of an official answer. So is E.T. a Star Wars movie or isn't it? And that's one where it's a little more direct and you kind of have an idea where it's come from. But this also reminds me of when from Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, the punk that's on the bus and he's literally a punk. I'm not insulting him. The punk that Spock nerve pinches and knocks out on the bus was also the same actor played a punk in Spider-Man Homecoming. And so then you had and this is a few years ago, you had everybody saying, "Is Spider-Man part of the Star Trek universe?" And it's like, holy fucking A. Like what are you talking about? You know, and that this kind of stuff is not helpful. It just gets completely out of hand, muddies the waters, confuses the fuck out of shit, and often just really points at the fact that now studios are using the concept of canon, you know, as pure marketing, and not actually it having any weight to the real story. But so I hear you on that. I mean, any other closing thoughts on the Fortnite thing?
No.
Yeah, it's bullshit. So just stupid. Well, how about we talk about let's see what else we got here. I guess we can touch on this quickly. Ahsoka being dead, because, you know, we're talking about those voices that Rey hears at the end of Rise of Skywalker. All the other characters that she hears are dead. And we did find out it's quite a lengthy list of people that end up talking to Rey, telling her to rise. And one of them was Ashley Eckstein, you know, as Ahsoka. So a lot of people were speculating, myself included, for about a day, for about 24 hours. Wait. So do we know that by the time? Go ahead.
And you pointed this out to me, and you said, I guess Ahsoka's dead. And right. When you remember what I said to you?
Oh yeah. You said it's like, well, I'll wait for. You said something like, I'll wait for Filoni or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I said she's not dead until Filoni says she's dead.
Right, and Filoni, 24 hours later, basically puts out this art of Ahsoka and Gandalf the Grey, you know, like or whoever or Gandalf, effectively.
Yeah, it is
walking. And Gandalf saying to her, is like, well, you know, people thought I was dead too. And basically. Right. So, yeah, this idea that Ahsoka's dead now, maybe not. And Ahsoka is certainly, you know, she is a master of rising from the dead or coming from out of nowhere, it seems. And I say that with respect and in a great way. So, yeah, that's fine. I'm with you now, Rob, that I'm not going to count Ahsoka dead. You know, really until Filoni says so.
Yeah.
And he seems to be suggesting, don't worry about it. You know.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Now I just wish, like, shit, could we have seen Ahsoka as a Force ghost? Even though they said really the only things filmed were people that weren't animated. It would have been nice, but oh well.
I still feel that Filoni still has plans for his entire, you know, cast of characters that he created.
Outside like live action plans?
I don't know if it's live action, but he is still the director of animation at Lucasfilm. So I can't imagine he's completely done with, you know, animated projects. I certainly hope not, because, you know, Resistance can't be the last good. No, not even good.
Yeah.
Resistance cannot be the last word on animated Star Wars, period.
Yeah, no. By the way, we're not going to get into reviewing Resistance in this episode. We're going to save that because we know we have a bunch more episodes actually that we didn't know were going to be coming out that are coming out. We're going to get to those probably next month. But yeah, no, I hear you on that. You know, and that reminds me, let me ask you this, because I made this statement recently. Would you agree with me, Rob, that like the last few seasons of Clone Wars is like the best Star Wars ever made?
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
You'd agree with that?
Yeah, that alone. I mean, for me personally, and I know you don't necessarily agree, but Rebels is up there too. But yeah, like, I mean, it's really up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, once they hit stride with season 3 and when it got into season 5, I was just like, yeah, this is Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's dynamite, and we're still feeling the repercussions right down to the Darksaber on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars, and I tell this to people all the way, I mean, you're really doing yourself a disservice as a Star Wars fan.
Right.
If you haven't seen it. It is really got some of the best storytelling in the entire franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. Best action.
And if you finish the Clone Wars and don't want to go on and watch Rebels, I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, granted, Rebels did scale back, I think, significantly, you know, from Clone Wars, as far as like overall scale, frankly, you know, like the galactic scale, and you don't get the same lightsaber fights and all that, but it's still a great show, and it's very much a sequel to Clone Wars. I mean, directly with the matter that you get Ahsoka, you get more Ahsoka and so on.
I mean, I kind of agree with you. It's scaled back in terms of its scope, but in terms of its storytelling, I don't feel that it's scaled back at all. That's
sure. Yeah, the writing's still great. I agree with you there. I'm with you on that. Yeah, well, I think that's something that's a point that needs to get driven home a lot. It's that a lot of Star Wars fans, a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans, what they love in Star Wars is something that a lot of people who even are like really bullish on the films have never seen.
Yeah.
They've never seen Clone Wars season 5. They've never seen any of this stuff. They don't. And I mean, the reaction to what happened at the end of The Mandalorian is abundantly clear of that they didn't watch Rebels or they didn't watch anything because everybody's like, wait, what the fuck is that lightsaber? We'll get to that in just a few minutes here. So anyway, okay, well, I'm glad we agree on that because it's a bit of a revelation I've had, that like, wow, Clone Wars is so fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, I've even had people tell me that like Clone Wars pretty much saved the entire prequel era for them. People who were not fans of the prequel trilogy, they're in love with that time period of Star Wars because it really kind of makes it all coherent and come together and actually have like an emotional impact when Anakin turns to the dark side.
Yeah.
Whereas you didn't really have time to get that even in 3 movies.
Or, in no disrespect to Hayden Christensen, the believability of it even. Because,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see especially like in season 6, like when Ahsoka's on the run, Vader, I want to call him Vader because he's acting so much like Vader. Anakin is like ready to start chopping off heads of, people on Coruscant. Yeah. And he's threatening everybody. He's like, if he's threatening Ventress. He's like, I'll kill you if you did anything to her or something like that. And you get more of, you see the progression, not just because you get to spend time with the character necessarily, but the writing itself shows you the progression of where, he's a vengeful motherfucker and he's going to kill someone.
Yeah. Or any time that there's any sort of like, challenge for Padme's affection, he just loses his shit.
Yeah.
And just gets dark.
Yep, very quickly. Yeah, it's true. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah, and the other thing that I really appreciated out of Clone Wars was the fact that it respected a lot of George's vision, especially with the midichlorians. The show would get very, very deep. But it doesn't appear to me that Disney wants to go there because I want to get into our next story quickly. And this annoyed the fuck out of me. And I shared this with you. This is before Rise of Skywalker even came out. But here's the headline: J.J. Abrams and Daisy Ridley on why there are no midichlorians in the Star Wars sequels. And I can just sum it up for you folks. Here, I'll read what J.J. says. He says, it's not like anyone here is rejecting midichlorians. He said, except Daisy. But it says, but the feeling of the Force being something you can feel, you can draw upon, you can believe in, I believe that is a more powerful notion. And that's what I felt the Force was to me. But the beauty of what George created is that we can all interpret it ourselves. So basically, J.J. Abrams is saying, the midichlorians are there, but we don't like the Force working that way, so we're just not going to talk about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely pure crap. What do you think about this comment, Rob?
I agree with you, but here again, they're paying service to the loud and angry fans who are basically all about Star Wars being about mystical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The George Lucas ruined Star Wars because he gave a objective, reality behind the Force, there's an actual, physical, tangible element to it.
Right.
And to them, it was always supposed to be something, mystical and, basically religious to it.
Yeah. And it makes me, well, let me read a Daisy Ridley's point here. She says, to JJ's point, I think the beauty of what people love about Star Wars and what I love about being a human is that we're all connected and everybody has their version of the Force, she said. And I think people have it in different ways. So I think we're all blessed with beautiful sensitivity. I get what she's saying. That's nice. But at the same time, this isn't what George Lucas was laying down. And I know that a lot of fans have always bristled at the idea of trying to come up with a scientific explanation for the Force. I've always been super supportive of that, because it was a way of explaining where we could have the fun of thinking of Star Wars as our history. And the reason we can't access the Force anymore is because the midichlorians are gone, which seemed to be the direction George Lucas was going to go with the sequel trilogy.
Right.
And I think that'd be a far more cohesive and brilliant and interesting story than just Disney wanting to play ball with this, like just this quasi mysticism that anybody can believe in and feel good about.
Here's a hot take for you. I mean, if you love the idea that the Force is purely mystical, why aren't you going down in droves and signing up to be part of the Catholic Church?
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Sorry, but I mean, that's basically what you're subscribing to here.
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoy. I mean, a lot of the problems that people are having with the logic or with the sequel trilogy is a lack of a logical framework, a logical consistency. I get it. It's Star Wars. It's space opera. We have people breathing in outer space when you can't do that. I know. All right. Like we all know that it doesn't play by all the scientific rules, but it's okay if it has an internal consistency that helps it be more real for us, which I think has been a strength in Star Wars with fans for a very, very long time. Not just people that enjoyed the movies. I mean, fans or super fans, if you want to go, there. But then these same people will complain at the idea that they want the Force to somehow be more vague. I don't know. This is just ugly storytelling. I don't like it. It doesn't fit with what Star Wars has done throughout much of its history. And I don't like that basically JJ can say, well, but I don't like that that's the direction George Lucas went, so we're going to go here. I mean, that's a slap to the face.
And I'll reiterate this for the umpteenth time for anybody who wants to say that George Lucas invented midichlorians for the prequels. No. Go and read J.W. Rinsler's The Making of Star Wars.
Yes.
He came with the idea from the very beginning.
Yes.
Just because he didn't talk about it, just because it wasn't in the OT, doesn't mean it wasn't in his head.
Yeah. I mean, this is something so missing. I know we say this all the time, but really, George Lucas is a brilliant guy, and he's a very deep guy. He's writing. I mean, he is writing with much of Star Wars, especially the prequels. He is writing commentary on the Iraq situation, on the Vietnam War. He was doing, I mean, with other parts of Star Wars. I mean, this is a guy who's very knowledgeable about shit. He thinks about stuff pretty deeply, even though he does change his mind about things often enough. I think that's fair to say. And man, you just know that depth is missing, now from the sequel trilogy and all this. And this is symptomatic of that, or it's not a symptom. It's actually part of it's part of what created the disease that we have right now. In my opinion. So I thought this was shitty. I thought it was totally out of line for JJ and for Daisy, frankly, to say. I didn't appreciate it at all. Any other comments you want to make on that, Rob?
No, I agree with, most of what you had to say there. I mean, and a lot of things that kind of has been thrown at George Lucas's past is that he made it up as he went along. I think that's more true of the sequel trilogy than anything that George worked on. And
yeah,
they people want to say, they should have had a plan. And, I think George, while he might have changed his mind, he had a kind of overarching, concrete idea of basically the ethos of the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And he stayed true to that.
Yeah. Whereas
JJ and Ryan Johnson and Bob Iger, all these people have no idea what that is.
Yeah. It's a shame because such an integral part of Star Wars now. And again, like you rightfully brought up, and as you do often, that it was always meant to be a part of Star Wars, the midichlorians. To just ignore that, I mean, Yeah, that sucks. That fucking sucks. I hope in Clone Wars, when we get season 7 in February, I hope they mention him like once an episode at least. That'd be nice, but it probably won't happen. Just to fuck with people. It's like, no, midichlorians exist. You know what? Here it is.
Well, I hope it gets brought up into I think there's a good chance it'll be brought up in the Mandalorian. That's another great opportunity for them to start talking about midichlorians again.
I agree. And you know what? Here we go. I'm gonna see if I can do this. Okay. I'm gonna make the first TIE Fighter Renegades t-shirt. And we'll put it up, and it's gonna say something along the lines of midichlorians exist. Or maybe it'll say midichlorians still exist, motherfucker, or something like that. Like something just to put it in the face of people, because I get it why that fandom wants to be pissed off, but I think for Disney to just be really short-sighted on this, what a shame. So anyway, do you want to move on from that?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. Let's get into. We're done talking Rise of Skywalker stuff, sort of, more or less. Let's get into the good shit, what maybe is the good shit, maybe what's not so much the good shit. But let's deep dive here. Why don't we get into the comic books, which we have been meaning to do this for a little while, and we are going to cover quite a few here. Varying degrees of depth, because how much depth is there to some of these stories? Why don't we start it off, Rob? Let's get into let's see, what should we start off with? How about Target Vader? You want to start with that?
Sure.
Okay, so Target Vader is a 6-issue miniseries about a character named Valance. And he is basically a bounty hunter. And in fact, he is going to be the lead character in an upcoming bounty hunter ongoing series for Star Wars from Marvel, the comic book series. And so this is in many ways an introduction to him.
A reintroduction. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah. Give me that.
Well, this was originally a character created by the original 1980s Marvel Star Wars comics.
Right. Yeah. Which you can, when you first see Valance in this comic and you first get the feel, especially in the first couple issues, it feels like 1980s Marvel Star Wars. And I love the fuck out of it. I thought that was actually a really, really good feel to it. And he has, he's a cyborg character, right? And it works. Like I thought overall that it really worked. So he is being hired by this group called the Hidden Hand to go after Darth Vader, and to kill Darth Vader. And he ends up teaming up with Dengar, and, the usual stuff happens. Obviously Darth Vader doesn't really die. But overall, what did you think of this comic series? It was clearly meant to again, like you said, reintroduce Valance. Mm-hmm. Do you think this character is going to be an interesting entry into the Star Wars universe, the new canon now? What do you got?
Yeah, I don't know. On one hand, I agree with you saying that it does feel very, 1980s Marvel Star Wars. And I'm okay with... See, this gets back to the problem where they got rid of the EU so that future Star Wars artists could have creative, freedom to do something different.
Right.
But here they are, and they're really not. And his backstory is pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
Is that he was, he starts out in this one, he's an ex-Imperial TIE Fighter pilot.
Right.
In fact, he's actually, his first appearance was in the Han Solo cadet comic.
Yes. Yeah, good point.
Which, yep. I don't know why they keep trying to link everything back to Solo. That was such a weak movie, and that was a weak comic, and it does seem to be like the focal point of so much in the Marvel Star Wars universe right now, and I really don't get it. But at the same time, This is, people probably not going to like what I'm saying about this, but I think in a way that bringing Thrawn back opened the door to them reintroducing a bunch of EU characters. And it's basically done because all these people have run out of ideas and they can't come up with original characters of their own.
Yeah. Which is, I think, let's talk about this for a second, because I think Disney's in a bit of a weird spot. So, and this is relative to the rest of the comics we're going to talk about. Something I've appreciated in a lot of the comics in the past, just 6 months, is the amount of female Imperial characters, including generals, in charge of Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
In fact, even in Rise of Skywalker, you have, the most important Sith Eternal character is a female captain.
Yeah.
Who fires the shot off of that big Star Destroyer.
Yeah. You got it in the Resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. So
with the
intelligence agents
the intelligence agents and the flight group leader of the TIE Fighter Squadron on, the ship that
right. Yeah. So I've appreciated that they have brought all of that in and a lot more, and they are badass characters, but they're not spending a whole ton of time. And we have Ray Sloan, but that's from before. Okay. Not that they've spent a whole ton of time where they've developed them very well. And of course we have Tolvin as well. But I feel like Disney is in a hard spot where they have some kind of corporate quota. And to reiterate, I love the fact that there's Imperial female commanders and generals and all that. Okay. I think they have some kind of quota to fill out where they have to have so many female characters written in, but they're terrified to make rebel female characters because they're worried that people are going to call Mary Sue on them or something like that. If there's some kind of a major character, Dr. Aphra somehow slid into all of this.
That's because she's neither rebel or Imperial. She's,
right.
She's the person between the cracks.
Right. But I guess I think Disney is scared to really create a lot of new characters because of the reaction to Rey and really the reaction to every new character that they've made, again, minus Aphra. And which would, again, total anomaly. So that's all I've got. It's just, I think Disney's skittish about doing that. And that's a shame. Go ahead.
I agree with that. And like you said, it is a shame because I don't think Aphra should be an anomaly.
Right.
She should be like the gold standard. Yeah.
But I think it leads to what you're saying. Like, I think they're just going to keep pulling from the old EU because
exactly.
Because that's the safe thing. It's like, oh no, you can't say that about this because it was in the old EU. So it's not like we made it up. Yeah.
And it's very fan servicey.
Yeah. That's true. So that is a problem. Admittedly, I liked the character and I thought the comic overall worked. Go ahead.
And this is not a criticism against, the actual story of the comic. The comic book was decent.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like terribly great, but it was good. I felt there were some parts of it near I think issue 5 or 6 where it starts getting a little muddled and confusing, where he rejoins the Empire for some reason.
Yeah.
That was weird. And the other problem I have with this is like, God damn it, if you're going to start a comic with it that's a limited run series that's like, a set 5 or 6 issues, sign one artist to do the whole damn thing.
Oh, yeah.
God damn it, stop doing this shit. Like in the last issue alone, I think the artist changed like 3 times.
Yeah. Yep, I noticed that too. Yeah, that really takes you out of the story.
It really does.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. We do see, like, it was kind of interesting to get a connection where, well, now we know why Dengar is on the Star Destroyer and Empire Strikes Back, right?
Right.
Because Vader tells him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And the other thing that was cool is that it kind of it gives a reason why Vader was so confident in Empire Strikes Back when he sees the image from the probe droid on Hoth, and he goes,
yes.
No, that's it. That's where the rebels is, I'm sure. Is because he knew that the rebel base was on an ice planet of, one kind or another.
Yeah. And this got reiterated in Aphra as well, right? With like the whole Destination Hoth thing, right. Where, everybody's kind of fucking with his info, but he's more or less finding out the messages. Hey, Vader, wherever the rebels are, you better stay warm. Meaning that it's somewhere cold.
Right.
This confluence that was happening between Target Vader, Aphra, and then of course it all came together in the comic book, the one shot of Empire Ascendant. I thought that worked. I was amazed that came together so well, which is part of why I'm trying to feel hopeful that there is some kind of vision like unified vision happening at Disney.
Yes, or at least at Marvel.
Yeah, right. At least at Marvel, and that they're going to clean this up. Go ahead.
Right, and that was the thing. Is just like, some of the comics in the past, where they've had like nearly concurrent events, and they feel very disjointed.
Right. Yeah,
or
absolutely.
It just seemed like a concentrated effort to make all the pieces fit together, and I just hope they can keep it up.
Yeah. I thought so I guess let's switch over to Aphra. I mean, we basically, now it is abundantly clear that Aphra and Tolvin, let's just call it, because one of the issues here is that Disney is homophobic. At least in Marvel's division, they seem to be able to get away with some of this because they straight up have sex. We know that now.
Right.
And it's all done very tastefully, romantically, respectfully. I loved it.
Yeah. The last 4 or 5 issues of Aphra, a huge improvement over the previous year.
Yes. Yeah. Though, when I saw Vader cut 000, in pieces, I was like, oh, finally, this guy's gone.
Yeah, I know.
Same with BT. I was like, oh, thank you. But unfortunately, at the end, it appears they're still around. And I was like, oh, God damn it. Like, I thought we got rid of them.
I know.
But it was...
But, maybe they'll just be confined to the ship from now on, which that's better than them walking around and basically calling all the shots like they have been for the last year or two.
Yeah, jack them into the ship like they did the droid from Solo into the Millennium Falcon.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. I'm L3 or whatever her name was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be. I'm fine with that. Like, if you want to make the ship like something murderous or whatever, okay, great. But the funny, like,
if she rebuilds them, I mean, no.
Yeah,
don't.
boring.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta say, the last 4 or 5 issues of, especially the last story arc for Dr. Aphra, I thought was dynamite. I really enjoyed it. I even liked the previous story arc with the Imperial propagandist trying to off the Emperor, being part of the assassination plot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that it worked. I am amazed that the Aphra comic has genuine moral lessons to kind of pass down. Right or wrong, it tries to get deep, and I dig that. The one thing that, let me ask you this, Rob. Do you feel like Aphra is a strong enough character to literally bring Vader to his knees? I mean, because she had Vader by the proverbial balls.
Yeah,
and it was done well, but for me, I was like, that's a little unbelievable. What do you got?
This is where I'm going to disagree with you, because
that's fine.
It wasn't necessarily her that was bringing him to his knees. Mm-hmm. She figured out his weaknesses and was smart enough to exploit them. And do I think she's that smart? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I buy it overall. Overall, you got me. I'm sold on it. Okay. It's just like, there was a part of me in the back of my head that was like, wait a minute. She's the person who, she could have killed Vader. She had him there, and she used him for something else. And wow. Well, there it is. I guess if anyone can, it's certainly a great story arc for this character. I'm going to say that it made for great reading, no doubt about it. So, any other thoughts on the Aphra comic? Anything big you want to bring up on that?
No, I think we covered the important parts. Like I said, I'm glad that she's going to continue to have her own series, because this is the last issues of, I guess you would call Volume 1 of Dr. Aphra. So we are getting they're basically restarting the entire line of all the Star Wars comics. And I guess that would kind of lead into the next comic, if you want to talk about Empire Ascendant.
Yeah, I think that's the logical place to go. While this comic would seemingly be meaningless, it does wrap up and coalesce everything that's been going on in Star Wars comics for the past at least year or so, I'd say, if not even further back. And overall, it worked. You're seeing Echo Base getting built. You get to see how Aphra leaves a lot of her supporting cast off. And I have to admit, you know what I thought the best part of this comic was? When Luke comes walking up to Tolvin, what's her name? Vidula, I think her name was, and Afra's father, and says, "Hey, yeah, I kind of knew her," you know, and like they all sort of have a moment. I thought that worked really, really well. The way they handled Luke in Empire Ascendant was very nice. Give me your thoughts on the comic.
That as well was my favorite segment of all the segments in this one, was the Dr. Aphra segment.
Yeah.
Even though it was kind of like a retread where you're hearing the last message that she gives in the final issue of Dr. Aphra, and you're hearing it delivered, you know, to all these people that, you know, she cares about. It was still I thought it was very tastefully done.
Yes. Yeah. No, I second that. I really enjoyed that a lot. The overall comic amazingly worked. I mean, we got a mention of Poe Dameron in it, amazingly.
Yeah.
From his dad. Yeah.
And his mom.
Which leads.
We haven't seen them since like that Force Awakens comic. What was it? Shattered Empire?
Shattered Empire, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was nice.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, Shara Bay and is it Kent? Not Ken. Kess Dameron or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, that was nice. And that leads directly really into Star Wars #1 for 2020, which did come out recently. And it's just an opening salvo of a comic. I enjoyed it. I liked what I saw for issue 1. I don't know if I have a whole ton of commentary really to make on it. It takes place, we are now between the time of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. We get a lot of interaction with Lando, and basically we see an expanded edition of the ending of Empire Strikes Back. And I thought it worked. It wasn't necessary, but it worked. It was interesting. And seeing how Lando is getting, you know, is kind of coming into the fold of the rebellion. I'll take that story. I mean, how did you feel about it, Rob?
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't a necessary story, but it worked. It is a good way of setting this up and kind of setting the tone for what's to come.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly where all this is going to go. Of course, we also have a Darth Vader we have a new Darth Vader series starting this year as well in 2020. It does feel like, just reading all this, it does feel like they are trying to keep their comic titles very tightly knit. Like they are going to interact with each other in some form or fashion.
And I don't know what that Darth Vader comic is necessarily going to be about, other than Darth Vader. But man, that cover of issue 1 looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Him and the Death Troopers.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I thought that Death Trooper story in Empire Ascendant was really cool.
Yes. Yeah. That was really, I think that's definitely going to play into, you know, whatever comes in the Vader comic, but the fact that he's having all these Death Troopers basically rebuilt the way he was, that's going to get interesting.
Right. Yeah. Having that, I mean, I wonder if they're going to become, what are they called? They're black stormtroopers. They're not Death Troopers. They have a little bit of red in their uniforms. Purge? Are they Purge troopers?
Oh, the Purge troopers. Yeah, they're basically they're associated with the Inquisitors.
Right. We've seen them in Vader's procession before.
Right, and they're also a big part of the recent video game Jedi Fallen Order.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if they're gonna be Purge troopers by the end of this, but whatever they're gonna be, it looks. I mean, yeah, I'm excited for this comic. And that's really the message to take away from a lot of these comics, is how excited I am for what's to come. Because if you asked me that a year ago, I mean, I was poo-pooing basically anything Marvel was putting out there for Marvel. Yeah. Everything was failed one-shots, other than the Age of series, which that got us through this dark time. But otherwise, you know, I wasn't excited at all. Now I can't wait. Yeah, give me all the #1s, baby. You know, I'm on.
Yeah, and and if you've listened to Brian at all, he's not a really fan of, like, you know, all these #1 issues, you know, starting comics over. But at least they're not doing away with the continuity.
Yeah. I mean, if the purpose here is to have a #1 and you're going to have the Star Wars Marvel universe be really interconnected, this is one of the times where I'm like, okay, you can get away with making some #1s because we have a unified vision going forward.
Right.
And that's all right. But I hate that. I mean, and let's be clear on this, folks. anytime you see a news story that says any of these comics is coming to an end, don't even bother clicking on it, because it's like, okay, so it's going to end this year, but then it'll be back next year. I mean, that's just the order of the comic book industry today. It's fucking annoying. But again, this time, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Rob, this time I'm actually okay with it. Like it works for me for them to do that. So excitement on the comic book front. Is that what you'd say, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all the excitement on the comic book front, of course, we haven't had like a real book in a little while, have we? I know we have a ton coming up in 2020. We're not going to cover those right now or talk about those coming up. But, there's a couple books that I picked up recently, too, that are new, like the Galaxy's Guide? I'd have to look at it. They're getting into weird places with the books. It's the Galactic Explorer's Guide that Jason Fry did, which I actually like Jason Fry's writing. He wrote the novel for The Last Jedi, if I'm not mistaken. And this book is AR. It's augmented reality, and it's very strange. We'll talk about that book in a future episode. I know that just came out. I just got it on release day, but we'll get into that in a future episode. So let's keep the excitement going, and let's talk about, frankly, the best thing going in Star Wars. In fact, maybe the best thing to be going in Star Wars certainly in 15 years, but hell, I mean, if somebody told me this is the best thing they've seen in Star Wars since 1983, I don't know how much I'd argue with them, as much as I love Clone Wars. Because, hot damn, is this a good time? And we finally have all of it. All 8 episodes are out now. That is The Mandalorian, the brainchild of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And we cannot ignore the names of Deborah Chow, certainly the name of Deborah Chow as well, including the other directors involved. We have reviewed so far on TIE Fighter Renegades up to episode 5, and so now we have chapters 6, 7, and 8. And, well, I'll say it out front, Rob, and then you can tell me. I mean, I thought that these episodes were absolute dynamite. There has not been a stinker in this bunch. What do you say to that, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is, I mean, how long can you say that we've gotten, a Star Wars where it's been, consistent quality all the way through?
And nobody complaining about it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, some people complaining about it, but they're crazy, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, just look at the numbers. Like, by the numbers, and fuck Rotten Tomatoes, but by the numbers, you have critics rating this at about 94%, and fan scores are 93%.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in Star Wars, folks. You understand? There's usually like a 30 to 20 point spread. And this is everybody's, or more or less, everybody's loving this. But anyway, I mean, wow. We could break this down by episode. But they all, chapter 7 and chapter 8 was a cliffhanger. Like, I mean, they one played right into the next, right, which was the only time we had really gotten this in the series. And boy, it was hard to wait for it. But wow, did I think it totally paid off. And Deborah Chow was just knocking it out of the park in chapter 7. I mean, it was really, really something. The episode where basically, and this is chapter 6, The Prisoner, where the Mandalorian, which we know his name now, but anyway, where he ends up he's gonna, get somebody out of a New Republic prisoner ship, basically. So this episode where he's, breaking into a prison ship and everything, I mean, it was just a great time. It was great to see a Deveronian, and to have Big Clancy, Clancy Brown. We basically, we'd already talked about the Highlander in this episode. To have the Kurgan, officially in live action Star Wars. Of course, he's done voiceover work in Star Wars for a long time. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. This was just a fun little episode with a lot of little Easter eggs in it that I enjoyed the hell out of. Even the one guy, I forget his name, but who was kind of the head of the mission to break into this. He had the toy of Dash Rendar. Okay, you got to understand this. This is how far back this goes. The toy of Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire back in the mid 90s had this backpack that it looked so stupid. They had this gun that would like flip out that could like automatically shoot from behind Dash Rendar.
Right.
And I remember. Go ahead.
That was the guy played by Bill Burr, right?
In the episode of
yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes, that character. And I couldn't believe it. they broke out that fucking backpack in this episode where the guy has this little gun that comes out from behind his backpack and just can automatically shoot like around a corner and everything. And I was like, that's Dash Rendar's gun. What the fuck? I as soon as I saw that, I thought that was brilliant. Like, I mean, there was such a nice little Easter egg in this episode. It worked for me.
Yeah. And how nice was it to see Twi'leks again?
Yeah.
You know.
And a Deveronian, yeah.
Yeah, after being missing for 3 movies.
Right. Yeah, that was awesome. And it set up some nice history with our Mandalorian character, which I enjoyed that. But then, you know, and I think we mentioned this in the last episode of TFR, just kind of offhand. The security guard aboard the New Republic ship was played by none other than Matt Lanter, of course, who voiced Anakin Skywalker for years on Clone Wars. That was cool, you know, for him to be there. I think the real icing on the cake with this episode was at the very end when we got Dave Filoni on screen, Deborah Chow, and the other director there. Was that Rick Fumiyama? Was that who that was?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I thought that was so cool. And they're just coming in as New Republic pilots and blow the station up and away they go. Yeah. As soon as I saw Filoni, I think I literally screaed.
Same here. And then it was Filoni and then Deborah Chow, and it was just, oh man, that was like it's. I know it's fan service, but it's nice to see, you know, these people that have, you know, such great involvement in Star Wars and such passion for it. They get in as characters, you know. But, you know, something that we didn't mention with the Rise of Skywalker, first time cameo for John Williams.
Oh yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. So, that made the rounds. I mean, and it's about the only cameo we could possibly want, unless George Lucas was there, I would think. That was a nice touch. Yeah. So
I always love that kind of stuff, you know, like, you know, and George did get in as a cameo in, what was it, Attack of the Clones?
Yes. Yeah. That was cool. So, yeah, this was just it was a very self-contained episode, I felt, but it worked, and was just a lot of fun, and all the Easter eggs were really great. And I think there's something to be said for, I feel like Baby Yoda, I mean, and this gets established in the next 2 episodes, where effectively by Mandalorian code, the Mandalorian is Baby Yoda's dad now. Okay.
Right.
And so I think this idea of Baby Yoda, like, it's kind of implied that he looks at the Mandalorian as his dad. Right. And I think, because this isn't the episode where Cara Dune gets force choked. That's in episode 7, right? Or chapter 7?
Yeah. That was in chapter 7. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that Baby Yoda is more or less copying everything that he watches the Mandalorian do. And that's why, like, I don't know, there's something here with that. And I feel like I'm worried, like, Baby Yoda might be getting influenced because he's spending time around all these gangsters and everything, right, including what ends up happening in chapter 6, that you might be swinging dark side.
Yeah, well, we mentioned this before. Is this, you know, like the future Baby Yoda could get very dark, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that adds into the idea that like the Force healing is a dark side power, and that, like, maybe the reason Baby Yoda could do it is because, again, the only examples he's seeing of how to interact with other people, at least, I mean, granted, I know he's 50 years old, but for right now, is the Mandalorian, and he's just beating the shit out of people. You know, and he's more, and Baby Yoda's seeing a lot of that happen. So I wonder, if the baby is swinging dark side here, that'll be very interesting to keep an eye on. But anyway, do you have any other thoughts on chapter 6? Like I said, it wasn't like I don't know, it felt very self-contained compared to the rest of the story.
It wasn't, you know, really tied into kind of the overall, you know, theme and arc. It wasn't Baby Yoda centric either,
right?
Which I think most of the other episodes kind of has been, you know, all the events are, you know, surrounding the child. But it was kind of nice to get a little bit of a break. Yeah. So after that, we end up with,
Well, we end up in chapter 7, which really chapter 7 and chapter 8, it's a two-parter.
Yeah.
And this is where things, the previous 6 episodes all just kind of come to a head.
Everything's dialed up to 11.
Yeah, instantly. We're getting the message from Carl Weathers' character, you got to come back and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, we don't have to get into all of the plot points. But I think that I didn't know how this season was going to end. I thought that this was a fantastic ending. We got more of, and a very funny Werner Herzog, coming out with, can I please see the baby? Can I see the baby? That was so.
Would you like some libations?
Yeah. But then, in very short order, you find out he's really just an underling, which is amazing to do that to Werner Herzog. I mean, because just his presence puts him in charge, whatever he's doing.
Right. But at the same time, I can't imagine him being, a cast member throughout the entire, run of The Mandalorian. Because this is going to go on for years.
Yeah, exactly. So to off somebody that major definitely ups the scales as far as this goes. They get trapped down by Moff Gideon. That character comes in and everything really just starts to fall apart for our quote unquote heroes. We find out that Cara Dune is from Alderaan. I thought that was kind of cool. That was a nice little touch. The amount of technical information that gets laid out in this episode, right down to mentioning the E-Web blaster, I thought was so cool, or the E-Web repeater. That was really, really cool. It's amazing how nefarious one TIE fighter can be, when show plays on this smaller scale, like we talked about as we reviewed this show. That was awesome. I mean, everything about this. Go ahead.
And that TIE fighter, that has the folding wings, they call it the Outlander TIE.
Yes.
Here again, that was another, nice little piece of unused art from The Force Awakens.
Right.
Actually, it's cool that they're still able to draw on all the cool ideas that they had, really even before Disney took over.
Yeah, agreed. That was a great touch to have that there. And
in fact, I want that as a model. Like, I want an actual, physical model of that TIE fighter that has the folding wings and the landing struts that come out.
Yeah, that would be great. I agree. And of course, people know how much we love TIE fighters, you and I, Rob. So yeah, I'd take that all day too.
I don't know where they would get that idea.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's not like it's the name of the show or anything. I don't know. Anyway. But Giancarlo Esposito, one of those guys that when he did come on the scene, you do believe that he is a higher up than Werner Herzog. And that is no small feat. Yes, he did.
He came in strong, and it played really well.
Yeah, no, it did. The importance, of course, also of Chapter 7 is that it is where we see Force healing happen, where Baby Yoda ends up healing Carl Weathers' character. And, of course, they aired that early so that you would see the Force healing in Episode 9. But anyway, that happened.
I thought that was hilarious when Carl Weathers is like, he's trying to eat me.
Yeah. That was awesome. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, this show is so funny. I like it. Like the humor really hits.
Yeah, Like even the last episode with that R2 droid that just kind of stands up, and you're like, whoa, what the shit is this?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was nuts. Now, all right. So here, and this is some of the best Star Wars and some of the funniest shit ever. And this is the opening for Episode 8 for Chapter 8 with those two scout troopers.
Yes.
Holy shit. I was on the floor. That was so funny. Like the guy's calling in. It's like, all right, do we bring the baby in? It's like, no, Moff Gideon just off an entire platoon. I don't think you want to come in here right now. Like, and I mean, it's terrible. Go ahead.
We've talked about these characters before, but this is classic Tag and Bink.
Oh yeah. And then he's punching Baby Yoda. Just like, I mean, it's
like, you just want to see it, don't you?
Man, those lines, that first 5 minutes is it's so funny.
And they're trying they're trying to shoot that can or whatever it is that's on the ground.
Yeah. And they look at the guns. They're like, maybe.
Yeah, and he's like, he's shaking the gun and it rattles a little.
Oh, that was just phenomenal. That was so great. Of course, unfortunately, these two pranksters, these two jokesters here, are the ones that end up killing Nick Nolte's character. Which that he's gone. He's done there. So I keep forgetting his name.
Did they give him one?
I thought they had, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't. Yeah. Oh, Quill. Quill.
What? Quill. That's right. Yeah. I thought. All right. Yeah. Quill. Yeah. Because they kept saying it into the the communicator, like, Quill, where are you?
Right.
Also, of course, we do get the return of IG-11 in all of this, which Quill has reprogrammed. And how well done. What a great droid character, in this. I was really pleased by that. Oh, fuck. Yeah, there's so much great stuff in this. I don't even know where to go with half of it, because I couldn't believe. I mean, we can get right to the ending if we want. One thing we do get to, again, we get the Mandalorian's name. We do get to see him with his helmet off for a second. Unfortunately, we do now know that Pedro Pascal is usually not in the armor. He's just doing voiceover duties. I don't think that surprises anybody, but I don't know.
No, I mean, because this series is so action oriented. I mean, why would anybody be surprised that these people have doubles?
Right.
That's as old as Hollywood.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, anyway, we find out a lot of that. We get a little more history, some hints of the Mandalorian purge. We get some of these little things within the story. We still have a lot more that we need to find out.
And like here again, they're laying down sort of like these seeds for stuff that we want to know more of, like this whole thing about the Night of 1,000 Tears. What is that all about?
Which would be nice if it's tied in with Sabine and her weapon somehow. That would be. Yeah, that goes directly after Beskar armor. That would be really cool.
Right. Or probably even what we're going to talk about next, I assume. How a certain person got a hold of a certain object.
Yeah, I mean, last thing I'll mention is it's great that the Mandalorian finally has a jetpack. He got awarded that. That was a nice touch and very cleverly used, and it was an awesome action sequence. I mean, tremendous action in these two episodes. But let's get right to it. This is what everybody's talking about. Moff Gideon, his TIE Fighter crashes, and you think that he's dead, but instead, suddenly a very familiar dark blade comes out of the side of that TIE Fighter, and he carves his way out, and he is holding it high. It is the Darksaber, the one and only. And wow, I did not expect this at all. This is in my opinion, it is a ballsy move.
Yes.
For Disney to allow for this, because at the same time that I complain that people don't watch the Clone Wars, I also understand that they don't. And to risk a finale on something that is kind of niche is, again, very ballsy. How about you, Rob? What do you say to this?
I mean, all I got to say is this is the way.
Yeah.
They keep this up, and then they continue to have me as a fan. Because really, this is like basically, I feel like the first time in a long time that we've gotten live action Star Wars that actually rewards you for being a fan.
Yes. Yeah. And this whole show has really been that. It's been just an absolute reward for anyone that has been following Star Wars and consuming all different avenues of Star Wars. And I couldn't be happier. Go ahead.
And it's not just fan service, because this all has relevance to the plot.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And this is what's, and I think I've brought this up when I've talked about The Mandalorian on other shows, but this point can't be, hit enough. You can include all of this fan service and still have an amazing fucking story that drives critics wild, that they just love. So, because I hear the argument where people say like, oh, fan service is bad. They spend too much time trying to appeal to the fans. No, you can actually do both. You can tell a great story that will make critics happy, and then at the same time can make all the fans happy. And The Mandalorian is absolute proof of that. And I think all told, The Mandalorian probably doesn't even chalk in at 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, you know? So yeah, this is the perfect show. But anyway, I mean, give me some more thoughts on, I mean, any more you want to say on the Darksaber predictions? What do you think's going to end up coming for this?
Like I said, my hope is we're going to go more into the backstory about how he got that weapon. I think that's inevitable.
Yeah.
I hope that does lead to us seeing what the fate of where we left Bo-Katan and Sabine in the last season of Rebels.
Yep.
Because that was very much the question of the fate of Mandalore was very much in question, and that wasn't something that was wrapped up by the end of Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, to understand, whoever holds the Darksaber is supposed to be in charge of the Mandalorians. I mean, at least symbolically. And Bo-Katan was the last one to have it, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So you got to find out what the hell happened with her.
It was hilarious because Sam Witwer on Twitter.
That was the best.
Did you? Yeah, he was like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's mine."
Yeah. I mean, you could just hear him voicing Maul, Darth
Yes.
Maul or Maul, and because Maul held the Darksaber for a while as well, and did very much command the Mandalorians. Longest. What's that?
I think he held it for the longest.
I think you're on with that. Yeah. So. Yeah, how Moff Gideon, I mean, just the fact that he has that says so much about the character as a villain. I mean, at the very least, okay, he either offed Bo-Katan, took it from her, however that worked out. I'm still hopeful that we're going to see Bo-Katan in season 2. Even if I have to wait till the last episode, I really, really want that to happen. I think it'd be foolish to not, because it's such a well-revered, especially female character in the Star Wars fandom, regardless of what side they're on. I think that's a no-brainer. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, just total jaw drop. Like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that was almost as big as the Baby Yoda reveal itself.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Like, I would have never ever guessed that. And how that was kept a secret I'm still in awe of that one too. In fact, the Bob Iger interview that you mentioned earlier, they talk about how I think in that he mentions how like they could not release toys for Baby Yoda because if they did, somebody would have leaked that Baby Yoda's a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because all these have to be produced months, if not a year in advance.
Yeah. I mean, we are starting to get some Mandalorian like bobbleheads and like Funko Pop stuff. Right. And I'm glad to see that. But man, there's so many things, even from Rise of Skywalker right now, that it's amazing that I would be so on board with buying toys of. But I'm curious to see how this market's going to go now, because now we're in an age where you can't reveal anything. Like, you can't reveal anything to any partners. You can't talk to anybody. You can't put anything out to distributors. And so you sort of, for you to market toys, you got to do it later.
I'm fine with that. I don't know about you, but
I'm fine. Or go ahead.
I'd prefer it that way because a lot of times I feel like the sort of marketing blitz that comes along with the content in a way kind of distracts from the content itself.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting that Bob Iger also said in that interview, I don't know if I believe him, but he actually said, we don't make things based around a toy line. Like he more or less came right out and said that. I don't know if that's true. I think for a long time it was true. And of course they know they're going to do bank with Baby Yoda in the future. Maybe this just speaks to the 100-year plan, but I think this also speaks to it's a new industry, and Disney's got to figure out how this works. How do you sell toys after the fact? Long time after the fact.
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen people seen a lot of 3D printed Baby Yodas in the last couple of months. Right. So I mean, obviously the demand is there to the point where people are making their own, and maybe that is just like the future of the business where people are, licensing your ability to create your own products. in your
Yeah.
home, you know?
Yeah. That well, that could get really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. If like you sell plans for products and everything,
right,
you 3D print them at home. Yeah,
right.
that oh
That
Jesus,
gets
Rob.
and that gets around a lot of the problems of sort of like the artificial scarcity that is put into the market.
Right, right, good point.
Like you could still do that to have like the official limited edition, retail version,
Yep.
but make it so that democratize this stuff. Make it so everybody has access.
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair. That's a fair point. Yeah, that'd be an interesting way to go about it. I mean, I'm amazed at what things they are releasing. This blew my mind. There's a Dark Ray Funko Pop, like Evil Ray from Rise of Skywalker. I
Yeah,
can't
I think
believe they
there's
made a figure of that. I mean, I hit pre-order instantly. I was like, holy shit, they're actually going to sell that?
yeah.
Especially considering that they wouldn't sell a Ray toy for their life, 4 years ago. Um, yeah, Disney is really having to figure this out because, I mean, I think they won by keeping all of Baby Yoda, Darksaber, keeping those secret. And I think it's worth more to them than toy sales. And I'm curious. Watching them on this is going to be an interesting lesson in business. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of getting off the mark of the Mandalorian. What else do we got with these? I mean, do we want to talk quickly about the show overall? I mean, I'm just going to say it's perfect. I love it. I think the writing is great. I know some people complained about that. I mean, do you have any thoughts on the writing, Rob?
Yeah, I think the people who don't like the writing really don't understand that the entire aesthetic and tone of this series is not just an homage to Star Wars, but like late 1970s and 1980s television storytelling.
Right.
Because they're very much kind of like, I'm thinking of, like it very much has a similar tone as, say, like the Incredible Hulk.
Oh, from
back
the
in the
70s.
80s. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yep.
it very, and it finally we have, stuff where like it doesn't end on a total like, cliffhanger downer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you're still like salivating to get the next season,
Right.
Because of how they ended it.
Right.
Yeah, this
and
is.
so you
Go
so
ahead.
you had that back in the 80s, like I said, especially with a lot of genre,
Mhm.
television and movies, and I feel like we kind of need that again, and it's nice to see that in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, so something that happened in the TV business for really like the last 20, 25 years, going into like the 70s and 80s, was a lot of writers to try and force the studios into getting another season were writing really heavy cliffhangers to try, like they were pulling tricks in a season just to basically force a studio into doing that. I think though you started to sacrifice a cohesive story when that became the norm. And so you couldn't get where, like when you think back to shows in the 70s, you can actually kind of watch any episode of The Incredible Hulk at any moment.
Right.
And for a lot of those shows. And I think you're right. I think The Mandalorian is kind of back to that. I mean, there's a progression where these episodes take place one after another, and you kind of know that. But at the same time, I think that writing speaks to that strength that used to exist. And there's a confidence in that because this show is not required. It doesn't need to get advertisers, right? It doesn't need to hook necessarily, even though it does have somewhat of a cliffhanger, but it's a very different kind of cliffhanger. I think you raised a great point. I think the writing is brilliant, and people just forgot that television can be done this way.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just so used to, the Battlestar Galactica and Game of Thrones Depression Fest.
Yes.
That, when something actually ends on a good note, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with this?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's surprising people, and it's part of what they're actually loving about it, what some people are loving about it. There are people who are criticizing it, unfortunately, but I agree with your assessment on them as well, or on all of that. So again, just a perfect show. There were a couple. I mean, I will say, while I like Ludwig Göransson's music overall, particularly in Chapter 6 on that prison ship, there were some points where I thought the beats were a little out of place and kind of weird. Like the music was a little off. That's the only thing, though, that comes to mind for me that I think where I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a little less than perfect. Otherwise, I thought everything just felt and looked like dynamite. I thought Gina Carano, she's doing the best acting of her life, and she's clearly having fun on the set.
Yes.
Like you can see the smile on her face is absolutely genuine. And she's always been that way. Like if you watched her back on American Gladiators, when she's more or less being herself, she's supposed to look like a badass because she's supposed to be intimidating like these, competitors. But she was always kind of smiling a little bit because she was having a great time. She's such a genuine person, in my opinion.
And I love that so much about her.
Yes.
It's just, somebody else brought up something that, and we're not the biggest, MCU fans, but if they wanted to make her She-Hulk, I ticket already bought.
Yeah, same here. Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, that would be perfect because now she was in the first Deadpool movie, but that was when it was Fox, right? Not owned by Disney.
Right.
But my complaint about Deadpool is that he's basically just a guy version. He took all of She-Hulk's thunder. He's a guy version of She-Hulk that Marvel just pushed harder in the 90s, because She-Hulk was kind of comedic and, breaking the fourth wall and all this stuff. And I loved She-Hulk for that. I think that would be very apropos for her to kick the shit, basically, in at least story-wise, out of Deadpool in movies, by being She-Hulk. That would be some poetic justice, in my opinion. I would love that. What a great point to bring up. Yeah, and I think that's part of her magic is that she is such a genuine person. She's a genuine badass. She has genuine fun and a genuinely caring and loving person. I don't want to go that far, but you know what I mean. She's just a genuine person. And that just shines through in every episode that she's in this. And it's beautiful to have her on there. An absolute win for the show. Any criticisms you can think of overall for this season, Rob?
If I did, they're nitpicks, and I can't even really think of them right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like your thing with the music. Like I didn't even notice the music in episode 6, so it was that inconsequential.
Yeah.
I'm taking your word for it. Overall, I think the music in the series has been absolutely brilliant.
Yep, same.
Overall,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it has really helped set the tone of the show, and really plays well with the action and the character themes. It's here again, like you said, it's damn near perfect.
Yeah, I really think so. And again, I mean, the acting, everything's there. Deborah Chow, this gives us nothing but hope, and I know you'd share the sentiment for because she's going to be in charge of the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah,
man, are we in for a treat?
Right.
If she can bring the chops that she's bringing to this show, holy shit.
And I said in the past that I was highly skeptical about an Obi-Wan movie or TV series, but now I'm genuinely excited.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, bring in Ludwig Göransson to score that one too, because he can do a Western theme, and that's more or less what I'm expecting in many ways out of an Obi-Wan story. Is something feeling kind of almost like Kung Fu, like with David Carradine. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of expecting something along those lines, and he could score the shit out of that, and that'd be awesome. Mandalorian's just got me feeling so good that, I mean, we had a lot to talk about with episode 9 and a lot of criticisms, but ultimately I'm just like, well, if they're going to keep doing this, I'm still on board with Star Wars. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so anything else to add in with the Mandalorian? Anything?
No, like I said, I've pretty much said my piece on it. I think it's both fair to say that we love the series, and we're, it's going to be a hard wait for next year to get, or I should say later this year.
Yeah, fall 2020. So that's actually coming up pretty fast. I mean, that'll be on us in pretty short order. But still, it's a long wait.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be weird getting up tomorrow on Friday and like, wait, there's no Mandalorian.
There's no Mandalorian, right? Yeah.
What the fuck? Yeah. Wait, why do I have Disney Plus? Fuck you. No. Yeah, I hear it.
I hope that at the very least that the response to this show allows them to increase the budget to make more episodes.
Yes. Yeah, we could definitely deal with, I mean, double the number, do 16.
Yeah.
That'd be
Right.
great.
Yeah.
And I hope it gives them confidence around the Cassian Andor show, as well as, I mean, the Obi-Wan show was going to go off with Ewan McGregor there anyway. Like, that name is enough to sell it. But yeah, I hope this is confidence building for Disney overall, and I love it. So let's do a little temperature check. I mean, how are you feeling about Star Wars overall? I mean, Episode 9 is, boy, a beast that cannot be tamed. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, overall,
I've never shared the sentiment that you can't have the sweet without the sorrow. Sure. I could definitely have done without all of the sorrow in the Star Wars universe, both in universe and outside of it.
Yeah.
But what is good is really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, whatever, the sequel trilogy, I basically feel is almost inconsequential. Like I can't even imagine myself watching those movies that much.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead.
I have had ideas where I think it could lead to interesting things in the future beyond the sequel trilogy, but they're really going to have to take more risks. Yeah.
I still stand by that in Episode 9. There's a million ideas in there that are really, really great. That deserve exploration and expansion in Star Wars, and I want that to happen. I definitely stand by that statement. But as it stands right now, I mean, the sequel trilogy, again, it's not something I'm going to be rushing anybody to go and watch if they want to see some great Star Wars. There's plenty else to see now, including The Mandalorian, and then next month we got Clone Wars coming up. So I'm feeling great. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm still on the Star Wars train, and the comic books are doing so well. I'm excited about some of the novels coming up. Overall, I feel excited. I'm feeling good, even with Episode 9, taking a long walk off a short pier there. So anyway,
taking a long dive into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah. Not good. Getting slow roasted for getting slowly digested for 1,000 years. That's all right.
I hope it doesn't take us that long to get over it.
No. It's a 100-year plan, not a 1,000-year plan. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this episode of TIE Fighter Renegades. One of the longer ones in the bag, but there's so much to talk about. And we'll see if we get another one in this month. If not, we will be here in February, and I guarantee you we're going to be talking some Clone Wars. So we'll be having a good time. And Rob, as always, the best of times. And not the worst of times, but still the best of times. And we will see all of you on the other side.